Hello. Welcome to the final episode of the BATTASS Podcast, the Batman the Animated Series show podcast, where we talk about Batman the Animated Series. My name is Clay, and with me, as always, is Sean Murphy. How you doing, Sean?
Man, I wish I had thought of a clever way to open this. Yeah. It's just sad, man. It's the last episode. Like 8 years in the making. Is that what it is?
It's pretty close to that. Yes, I think so.
Yeah. It's wild. We have... Sorry, go ahead.
No.
We're already talking over each other.
We got to get it all in.
It's wild that, episode 1, I'm like, yeah, I'm thinking about doing Batman one day. And then episode 10, like, yeah, I just pitched Batman White Knight. And episode 20, it's like, hey, it's going to be greenlit, and I'm starting art. And it's kind of like it kind of wrote, we did this alongside of you helping me create the whole White Knight universe. It's kind of a nice time capsule in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it's I don't know if I think it would be fun to go back and listen to every now and then, but I don't know how much I'd be able to do that, because once it's your own piece of like creation, I find it gets difficult to, like any piece of art because podcasting is an art. It gets difficult to go back and listen to. But yeah, we were just talking before we started about the first season, when our plan was to record everything and then release everything at once. And it took us, I think, a year and a half to record the first season because just various schedules, we couldn't get it together. And then we recorded 3 episodes that we had to re-record because the sound was so bad. And then there was 3 or 4 other episodes where the one half of the files got lost, so we had to re-record so it took a while. But we figured it out. We streamlined it, and here we are at the end of Batman Beyond.
Yep. We started thinking we would do a Netflix model where we would just dump the whole season at once. So anybody who's found this podcast more recently, you might not even notice that the upload dates for season 1 are basically the same, I think.
Yeah.
Whereas people seem to prefer us going one episode at a time like this.
Yeah. It's an interesting idea because, people do like to binge this stuff, but I think it's, as you find out, even with TV, so many of the streaming channels have gone back to the weekly model too. It's it takes people's mind off of it quicker. So, a new TV show comes out on Netflix, people talk about it for maybe like 3 days, and then that's kind of it. Whereas if it's, comes out monthly or weekly or whatever, it's got a lot more. People are, it's in the public consciousness a lot more.
Right. So we have questions from our listeners.
Do we want
to do that after we do the?
Let's do that at the end after we finish the 2 episodes. The 2 episodes in question are the final episode of Batman Beyond, which is called Unmasked, and the technically the final episode of Batman Beyond, which is from season 2 of Justice League Unlimited, which is called Epilogue. So we'll take a quick break and we'll come back with Unmasked.
Terry, are you there?
I'm here. Cobra just tried to make a move on Miguel.
Everything okay?
Yeah. Cops were just here sweeping up. Thanks for arranging things with the commish.
I didn't. She was in a meeting. I couldn't get through. Terry.
I think I just handed Miguel over to Cobra.
Okay. Unmasked. Written by Hilary J. Bader. Directed by Kyung-Won Lim. And in this one, Terry recounts to Max one of his earlier adventures as Batman, during which he revealed his face to a child and inadvertently made the boy a target of Cobra. I'm kind of surprised for how quickly Cobra came back, and it's weird that they talk about this as an early mission when Cobra just showed up for the first time like 3 episodes ago. Yeah, and it's funny to me that the kid clearly has a G.I. Joe in the episode, and we've got a villain named Cobra. Yes.
To me, it's just hard to not think about G.I. Joe for a lot of this, but I did enjoy this episode. I do have a higher rating for it. A lot of positive things to say.
Ooh, well, we have a little bit of a change here at the end. I like this one too. I thought it was more than just the usual kind of explosions and loose plot. There actually was something that was kind of nice going on here. As far as dealing with the secret identity and why you can't can't show people his face. I really, when it started though, I thought it was really funny because he's like, Dana or Max, I can't tell people my secret identity. Remember when I almost let that kid die? It's like, well, what does that have to do with? Oh, and then the story continues.
Yeah, it is funny how it just comes out of the blue and they just sort of run with it.
Yeah, I doubt that was where she thought he was going. When of all the reasons why he can't tell Dana what he looks like.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know if there would have been a better way to ease that into the plot, rather than it be an abrupt flashback. Have it happen in real time. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah. What is interesting about this though is it is actually, this didn't air originally on the first run of Batman Beyond because the show was canceled by the WB before it could be aired, and they decided not to air the episode excuse me, because of the terrorism themes, because it was scheduled to air on September 15th, 2001. Oh. So they pulled it, just kind of quietly ended Batman Beyond and didn't air this until it aired on rerun on Cartoon Network later that year.
Yeah, and that's a fascinating time when the towers went down and comedy felt like it was over. You know, hosts Conan O'Brien, everyone was like, can we make jokes anymore? I mean, what do we do? It was such a weird few weeks.
Have you ever run into that with your art? Because I remember when I was in, I guess I must have been in middle school, I think. High school? Was it? Anyway, when Columbine happened, there was a local art show that I was entering a painting into. And the painting I was going to enter into the show was a painting of the Golden Age Sandman, so with the gas mask and the gun and the trench coat and the hat. Yeah. And my mom was like, maybe don't put this one in there based on the gun and the trench coat, because that was the mythologizing at the time of what had gone on. And so instead I did a quick shitty Daredevil painting that didn't place. But
yeah, it's probably good to pause. I agree with what your mom was getting at, and I can see why media would want to hold back on that stuff. I don't know if this is true, but I remember hearing that one of the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man movie trailers had Spider-Man hanging an airplane in between.
Yes.
Or like a bad guy or something, but he used it, and they obviously pulled that. Probably a good move. Yeah,
that actually was in theaters because that came out earlier in the summer. Okay. And that was like the very first teaser trailer for the first Spider-Man movie was guys robbing a bank and getting into a helicopter, and then Spider-Man webs the helicopter between the Twin Towers, which is a pretty cool image, but obviously
it's amazing. Yeah. Why wouldn't you do that? Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny. I mean, to us, that doesn't seem that long ago, but I'm finding that it's the village elders, so to speak, and I'll refer to myself as that. You do need to repeat these things to younger people who are up and coming who might not know that. You can't just take for granted that everyone remembers that, you know? Yeah.
It's weird how something like that can kind of slip from the consciousness as just time goes on, because it does get so ubiquitous. I don't know if that's the right word, but it just becomes part of the calendar, really, and it's like, it's another day that has some meaning for something horrible that happened. It's like, well, it's different when you were alive during it, but I'm sure it was like, when for people who were born around our time when the talk of the Kennedy assassination came up,
Yeah, it's kind of vague. Like you knew that there was a war called Vietnam, kinda.
Yeah,
So I had two quick stories about when my art got edited or tampered with because of current events.
Sure.
They're not that. All right, so the first one was I was drawing Tokyo Ghost, and Rick writes a lot of really violent stuff. And we had just had another school shooting. I think it was maybe Sandy Hook. And I had to draw one of the characters killing a bunch of children with a sword or something like that.
Yeah.
And I drew it, and I saved it for the last page that I had to draw that month because I knew that it was just going to bum me out and send me off course. So I usually save the worst pages for the end sometimes. And I told Rick after, I can't do violence like that anymore. Like, I'm going to just do more implied violence. Like, I don't want to draw blood. I don't want to draw guts. It was just really fucking with me. And he didn't disagree. So he agreed to let me pull it back a bit and sort of tweak the script here and there, which I appreciate. And even to this day, I don't enjoy drawing like Ryan Otley style violence.
Yeah.
You know, I usually am like, I don't like letting the colorist add rain. I don't like letting the colorist do any heavy lifting for me.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I even draw my own shadows, which a lot of artists don't. But I am fine letting the colorist do blood effects because it's just bums me out if I have to do it myself. You know?
Yeah. Well, I noticed you do a lot of it in silhouette, which I think works really well because that's another. I mean, I guess technically this is a different conversation, but that's the question when it comes to drawing that stuff is, do you do it with ink splatter to make it look nice and organic and whatnot, or do you outline the blood spray and draw you know the goopiness of it so you can color it in red? Yeah, and which is why only when I started drawing comics did I figure out why this was in 90s comics. It might have been a Comics Code thing too. I noticed a lot of blood was just black. So you'd see a lot of like in the Superman fighting Doomsday and stuff, he would have some areas that were red, but like a lot of just like what looked like ink running down his arms or whatever. And I was like, well, that's really strange. Why did they do that? And it's like, well, it's easier and to just draw it in instead of having to outline every trickle of blood. But I do think they probably also did it like they do in movies, like where they there's green blood in this monster movie, so we don't get an R rating, like that kind of thing.
Yeah. It's funny, like I think a lot of artists tend to draw blood like syrup. Yeah. So it runs from the wound down the edge of the sword into one thick droplet, like a Mike Mignola Hellboy drawing, which is great. But when you see how complicated blood spatter is in movies, and depending on how the wound works, it's just drawing blood is so hard. And drawing it at an angle, because like body on the floor, the droplets near you are bigger, and they all kind of tip away from you in space, like a bunch of little ellipses. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
You know, I just, while you were talking, I'm thinking, you know, I should just take a day after I'm done with The Last Driver and just make blood splatter with ink and just scan it in and send it to my colorist and be like, use these where you see fit.
Oh, that's not a bad idea. Yeah.
Just color it red, color hold it. It's not going to be on the art itself, but at least that way it's still, you know, quote unquote Sean Murphy art. It's not a filter, and then I don't have to deal with it ever again.
Then you're going to have someone who's like, I am really looking forward to paying $3,000 for this. Wait a minute, what? The blood isn't on the page? I'm sorry. That was the only thing I was interested in. No sale.
So I'm opening up a commission list, and they're $10,000 each because they're like cover quality. And I was, you know, debating with my assistant Jake. I'm like, oh man, I know it's so expensive, and he goes, yeah, but they're not just paying for the commission. They're paying for the 20,000 hours of effort you put into drawing that over your years of career. I'm like, okay, yeah. Let's say I say that to the guy in line who just drops 10 grand. The guy behind him, does he get to only pay $500? If I'm like, no, you're paying for 20 years, he's like, the guy in front of me just paid for 20 years. I think I get this for cheaper.
I think in that case, I think you got to go back and you have to decide how much each hour of time you spent over the last 20 years of drawing comics is worth, so you can price your commissions accordingly.
Yeah, and that's so easy to do. I'm on it. And the second time my art got not in trouble. Well, I was drawing Punk Rock Jesus. It was 2009. Hurricane Sandy had hit, and New York was flooded, and, you know, couldn't get gas for a week, and, you know, I was stuck in Paris trying to get home because I was traveling for work. Anyway, 2 months later, an issue is released of Punk Rock Jesus where the Statue of Liberty is underwater, and I had drawn that like 8 months ahead of time because you know, it's not like something happens and a month later it's in a comic.
Right.
You know, comics aren't that fast.
Despite what some people think.
Yeah. And sure enough, I don't know where I read it, but someone was like, I think it's bullshit that Sean would, you know, totally use the tragedy of New York City flooding and make money off of it in a comic so soon to the event or whatever. And I'm just like, is that even worth responding to? You know, that person just wants to be angry what's the gain of weighing in here, or do I just let it go?
Yeah. And also, when it comes to that stuff, anytime there's a controversy like that about like, oh, I can't believe they published this stuff, it always goes to the artist who gets the brunt of the whatever.
Yeah.
I always think it should go to the publisher, because the publisher makes the final decision whether or not to put that out. Like anytime there's a cover that people go crazy over, it's like, well, they didn't have to put that cover out. There could have been one of the many people that this had been filtered through before it got to the print stage could have said, maybe not the time.
Yeah, I mean, there was a famous panel in Spider-Man, I think, where there's a 3/4 down shot of a bathroom, and against the wall where the tub is a door.
Oh yeah, yes.
Like you literally can't. I don't know if this door opens in or out, but it doesn't matter because there's like a clawfoot tub there.
Yeah.
So who do we blame? The penciler should have known. The inker should have told him. The colorer should have told the inker. The editor. There's like 10 people that you can blame for that. I guess it did start with the artist, so it's not totally unfair sometimes.
That's one of those. I've seen that panel, and that's one of those things that I can chalk it up to not paying attention to what you're designing. But there's also a part of me that's like, I wonder if you asked that penciler, and they'd be like, no, I actually lived in an apartment in New York that had a bathtub that was wedged up against the door like that. Like it's not out of the realm of possibility, but it is weird enough that it doesn't look right.
Right. Well, I think that storytelling isn't about what's 100% accurate. It's about what the truth in the story needs. And if your story is going to disrupt its flow because the reader's like, wait, why would you put a bathtub there? It doesn't matter if you live in a place like that or not. It's fucking distracting.
It tells you a lot about the guy who owns that building, though.
I kind of want to draw a panel now where there's a bathtub in front of a door, and it'll be like our version of a Wilhelm scream.
Yeah. I think we should do that. From now on, any comic we do, we should have one panel where there's either a bathtub or something that should not be in front of a closed door is in front of a closed door. That'll be our signature.
Down with that.
Yeah.
Do you have any things that you keep, any gags that you keep inserting into your books when you draw them?
Not a ton. The one thing that I will do is anytime that I have this is a very nerdy thing to do. Anytime that I have to draw a car, that's one that's not like a hero car, that's just like in the background or something.
Yeah.
And you can see the license plate. I always put KAR 120C as the license plate, which is the license plate from the car the prisoner drives from the show The Prisoner.
Oh, that's perfect answer. That's really good. Yeah. It's funny. James Cameron kept using a Gen 1 Honda CRX in his movies. And I don't know if it was on purpose or if he just always used the same car provider service. Because in T2, you could see this same CRX drive by the background real quick.
Really?
And it was a scene. Yeah. And then What's-Her-Face drives it in True Lies, that same car.
Oh, yeah. That's interesting. Yeah, I know.
I used to own one of those. So I'm I wonder if it's just a coincidence. I mean, that car was all over the place. It was a Honda Civic, for Christ's sake. Yeah. But it just feels like James Cameron might have had a sweet spot for that car. Maybe I'm just inventing it.
It's possible. I mean, there's the Sam Raimi one where he uses the same car in every movie. The Oldsmobile. Classic.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an amazing... I kind of want to see a documentary just on that.
I know. How many of those cars have they gone? Because it's obviously not the same car.
I heard it was, but it's been replaced part by part because it keeps getting wrecked.
Oh, maybe that's what it is then, yeah.
But, I mean, I've got friends who are so-called horror experts who all say different things sometimes. And I'm not, as you know, the horror guy, so I don't really know what to believe.
Yeah,
I kind of want to believe it's the same car, though.
I know. I'd like to believe it is. Even the rumor that I don't think there's any way to really confirm is that it even appears in The Quick and the Dead, the Western that he did.
That's cool.
But technically the reason you can't really confirm this is because they say they used the chassis and built a like a wagon on top of it.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds not true.
Yeah, it's a nice thing to say, but it's impossible to verify.
Oh, man. I think the Easter egg I always go for, it's stupid, but when I have a character drinking coffee, I'll often use the same mug, which is my favorite mug.
Oh, sure.
It's a mug from the 70s. It says it's better in the Bahamas. It's usually like a character who's had a rough day and just he needs to pick me up or whatever. So you can find that a few times in my stuff.
Nice. That's a good one. Yeah.
All right.
Speaking of using things from other media, segue. Did you notice that that Cobra, the machine Cobra uses on the kid in this, is basically a Riddler machine from Batman Forever?
No.
Which is not really it's not really a novel concept. They actually do something similar in The Prisoner. But it's I've always loved the idea of the machine that can turn your innermost thoughts or your dreams into basically a television show.
Right.
Because there's something.
Yeah.
Dreams are so much like watching TV or watching a movie to a certain extent that I think it's just natural for science fiction to come up with a machine that can do that.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. So they've used this in the animated universe. At least one Riddler episode. And then there was one called The Secret of Bruce Wayne or something like that, where they had a visualization of dreams and it was used to blackmail.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess they don't really. I was thinking of the also the one where he's living the alternate life, but that they're not really watching that. I don't think, or are they? No, I don't think so.
No, they're not. But yeah, take your point though.
Yeah. Speaking of cars, those police cars are so stupid looking. Every time they show them, like they're cool from a ground shot, sort of, but anytime they show them driving, they look like they're driving backwards because of the way that they're designed. Like the arch, the arch of the front windshield looks like it's the rear of a car. It's a really odd design.
Yeah, like imagine a mouse from the 90s with giant wheels in the back and tiny wheels in the front.
Yes.
Is the big end the front? I forget.
The big end is the front, yeah.
Oh, I hate that design. I'm always more of the weight of the object should be in the rear. Spaceships, cars, motorcycles are different, but you know what I mean.
Women.
Wow, I walked right into that one.
I was, listen, I didn't say it quicker because I expected that's where you were going.
Oh, man. You know what? In season 1 or 2, I would have been young enough and sharp enough to make that joke. Back when I was inventing airplane boner and ranting about hentai.
Yeah, I've been I'm not great at drawing cars, and so I've been trying to get better at it, and I found that one of the things that helps is to learn more about how they're constructed. And I found this great series of articles on car design that from like an online magazine somewhere that explained a bunch of the pieces of the car to me that answered so many questions that I just always staring at cars going, I don't understand. Why does this do that? Why does this go here? And it seems really random, but it's not. It's obviously not. So it was like the thing that always killed me was I could never figure out the angle of the I'm going to show you what I learned here, of the A pillar, because I was always trying to look at the angle about where it comes in relation to the wheel. And I learned that front wheel drive cars, the A pillar will arch past the center, past the axle, and rear wheel cars, it will usually touch the center of the axle or be slightly behind the axle. So it's like,
what is an A pillar? Sorry,
the A pillar is the how would you describe the front corner of the windshield and the driver's and the window.
Okay,
so that first arch of the windshield back into the roof.
Right.
Yeah, I could never figure out. Wait a minute. Do I know something more about cars than you do?
Yeah, I don't know what an A pillar is. It's a new one for me. Is that even a thing? If it's not, I'm gonna embarrass you right now.
Oh, baby. Put one on the board for Clay. No. Yeah, like the angle of that, I could never.
He's right.
Yeah, I know.
God damn it.
Yeah. The angle of that I could never square in my brain because it just never. I didn't understand the theory behind the positioning of it. So it's interesting. It's interesting how you can wrap your mind around things better. Obviously, the more you understand about how they're built, the theory of the design.
Right. So for anyone confused, the A pillar is the slope of the windshield.
Yeah.
If you drew that as a line, if you're looking at the car sideways, if you drew that as a line, that line would continue right into the middle of the front wheel.
Well, if it's a rear wheel car, rear wheel drive. That's very hard to say.
Well, I don't know if that's true because trucks are rear wheel drive, front engine, and I don't know if it necessarily has to affect the A-pillar.
They didn't. The thing I was reading was talking about it wasn't talking about trucks specifically. It was just cars, so it might be different for trucks.
Okay. All right. So at least I get to win that one. Give me a little bit of a win here.
In the last episode, I have to take away as much of your credibility as I can. One last chance.
I'm the car guy. No.
I felt very attacked when the method by which Cobra captured that kid was by leaving a stray action figure on the ground. I thought, that would totally work on me. That's how all the clipboard people on the street get me, is they drop a Batman figure at my feet and they go, "Whoo!"
Yeah. Forget it. Candy in a van. Fuck that. Just a toy in the street will work. You don't even need a van.
Yeah, put like a piece of strip. Do the old fishing line on a dollar trick, but it's hooked into like a Funko Pop.
Exactly. Oh man. So it's funny. My Jake got me a Christmas gift, and he bought me the Superman action figure that I always wanted as a kid.
Oh,
my
nice.
parents would never get it. It was
that's the one where you can create the skin out of putty on top of it.
No, not the T800. No, there was one in the 80s where if you squeezed his legs together, his fist would punch.
Nice.
But, and I hope Jake never listens to this, he got me the wrong one.
Oh, no bonus for Jake.
It's the same mold, but it comes with a kryptonite ring. And it's in its original packaging. It's all yellowed, and it's probably worth $100. So it's cool, but technically it's not the punchy one that I always wanted as a kid. So everyone listening to this, if you come up to me at a show, and I'm with Jake now, do not say this. Or if you want to fuck with him a little bit, fine, but do not give the punchline away because I don't want to hurt his feelings.
Is it the superpowers one?
There's two, and it's confusing because it's the same mold.
Okay, well, we can talk about this after. I don't want to spend 20 minutes Googling old action figures.
He got me the one from 1988 or 1989, which looks very similar. And there's one that was made before that, same mold, different company. We'll just say it's Kenner or Toy Biz. It was one of those two. And it was same thing, but it had punchy action and no kryptonite ring.
Well, time to look for a new assistant, I suppose. If he couldn't get that right, Sean, what else is he failing at, is what I'm saying.
I mean, I sent him a photo. We were texting once, and I was just joking. Like, this fucking figure was $250 back in 1985, and my cheapskate parents couldn't get it for me. I mean, Jesus Christ, how cold do you have to be? I was on a rant. And I sent him a photo, and it's not his fault that I sent him the wrong photo, and he bought me that exact action figure. So this is my fault, not Jake's.
Okay, all right. Just as long as you could still be ungrateful for it, then it's fine.
Yeah, someone is going to come up to my table this year with that kryptonite ring on, and he's going to give me a little wink and show me his ring, and he's going to be like, "Yeah, that's the move right there."
One. I think I had the one with the kryptonite ring.
Yeah. I bet that ring got lost a lot.
Oh,
it's one of those parts of a figure that are worth a lot now because, we all threw it away.
Absolutely. Where are we going here? So we got Cobra. They have a deadly snake pit, which that was pretty wild. That they were not only did they dump a guy into the deadly snake pit, they were going to throw a child in there, and then it ends with
the guy kills himself,
which is honestly probably for the best, because that guy goes out thinking he's a hero and didn't have to live with the embarrassment of finding out that they bought him the wrong action. I'm sorry, that they got the wrong face on Batman.
Oh man, I don't want Jake to die in a snake pit. It'll probably be the wrong kind of snake though.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, if those guys have snake powers, I'm surprised that they would, I just assumed that the snakes would move aside or something if they ever tried to jump into a snake pit.
Yeah, I guess we don't really have the time on the show to get into how much of a close relationship that they have with the actual snakes.
Right. If you were going to kill off Catwoman, would she die? Do you torn apart by a giant jungle cat? Or
I don't know.
Is she kind of always safe from cats?
I mean, that's
where's
kind
the
of
greater
poetically, poetic justice,
It's not bad, actually.
Yeah.
I'll write that down.
Well, and I mean, Batman Returns, that's how she gets created somehow, by falling out of a window and then getting licked back to life by cats.
And bitten.
And
Don't
bitten.
forget the blood transfusion.
That's true. Okay.
Oh, man.
Never quite
What would you,
figured that out.
Do you want to move on to what would you draw?
Well, before we get to that, is there anything else you wanted to talk about? Like, this was, as far as the story goes, did you like the sort of flashback nature of what they were doing here? Like, I was a little bit on the fence when they started doing this, but I liked it. Once everything wrapped up, I was like, okay, that's a good way to wrap it up.
The episode?
Yeah,
the
episode, because it's he tells this story, and then they do the thing where how do you know he doesn't remember what you look like? He's like, oh, because that's this little kid's here, and I hang around his school a lot. And then obviously he gives him he gives the camera a little sly smile that obviously he does remember what Batman looks like.
Right. Or it's left undetermined.
Yes.
You can choose for yourself, which is cool. I generally, I feel like if you can avoid doing flashbacks, you should.
Mm-hmm.
Overall, I think comics use flashbacks a ton without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And I do it too. I'm guilty of it. But in movies, I know they're a lot more careful about doing that because it's sort of cheap and easy. So my gut reaction is, as far as this episode goes, I feel like it would have been stronger if you didn't do the flashback stuff at all. Had him save this kid, try to save this kid. The kid wouldn't cooperate, and Terry took his mask off to set the kid at ease, blah, blah, blah. I don't think you get anything by having it all in flashback where the danger is in the past, and we know that they both survived.
Yeah. Yeah, it's yeah, I don't really know if the telling this story to Max is worth getting rid of that tension, because I think, like you're saying, I don't think anything changes in the story itself. Like, you can still tell the same story where Terry takes his mask off and then Bruce gets on his ass about it and he's like, well, why, what's the big deal? And then he has to learn that, and then they have the end. Like, I still think all that stuff still works, and it's probably a little cleaner too, instead of having to force it into an explanation as to why he can't tell his girlfriend what he does at night.
Right.
Even though that is a concern, which in the final episode of the series, the question is finally asked, why don't you tell your girlfriend what's going on?
Right. Do you think this is the way they wanted to end Batman Beyond? Like you said, it was canceled. If I was helping produce this, I'd be like, oh, that's the last episode we did?
Yeah.
Like, I wish we could put a better bow on it. Maybe have a flashback with old Batman and tying together how he and Terry are so similar. Obviously, Epilogue does a lot of that.
Yeah.
So maybe that's why they did Epilogue, was to give it a proper bow, and they did a great job, of course. But
yeah, I can't imagine this was how they planned to end things.
Yeah. And how did the animated series end? The last episode of the first run. Do you remember what the last episode was?
Before the redesigns, or like the...
Yes.
Give me 1 second. I get the thing here.
Yeah, because that was all commissioned, so they must have known which episode would be the final one to run, and they could have tried to put a bow on it.
That's, it's always tough with these things because, they're a lot of them are listed out of or
right.
Broadcast out of order of production, and
right.
Let's see. The last episode of season 2 was Batgirl Returns. So that doesn't really feel like any finality to it.
Right.
I suppose it could also be a great time to reference the podcast we've been doing for 8 years. We should know this, but New Batman Adventures.
Yeah, the final episode. I'm looking that up now. It says no. Lion and the Unicorn is not correct.
This Wikipedia has it as
Judgment Day.
Wikipedia says Mad Love.
Oh,
is
that
a
good.
True. Yeah, I guess it is. Yeah.
So that is that's a banger for sure. So I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, I think the nature of these things too is a lot of these shows, at this time, I don't think were being made with the intention of an end to them, you know?
Yeah.
I don't know if that was because they just always wanted to assume they were going to continue, or if it made it easier for syndicating them and stuff, where it's like, well, you know, if it's all episodic, we don't have to worry about, because it always screwed me up that the first episode of Batman the Animated Series was the Christmas one. And is that what it was? It was where Robin shows up. Robin shows up randomly and then doesn't show. Like it's one of those things where my comic book brain is like, well, we didn't get an origin episode for Robin. What the hell is he doing here now?
Right. So sometimes I think that On Leather Wings is the first episode.
It is
of the original series.
That is the first episode, but I think
Episode 2 is Christmas with the Joker, which has Robin in it, but they haven't discussed where Robin came from.
Yeah, I believe. Yes, Christmas with 3. The Joker. I could have sworn that was. All right, I don't want to keep doing this because we'll be here all day. Because my memory was that Christmas with the Joker was the first broadcast episode, but that is not the case.
Okay. I mean, you could have been.
I'm dumb.
You could have easily been right because a lot of them were moved around. Thanks, Bin Laden. So the final episode is Batgirl Returns. It doesn't even have Bruce in it, really. There's no way this would be a bow tying episode, so to speak. Right. I think you're right. Speaking to the mentality of making TV back then, it just wasn't a thing to do. But it's so great that they got to put a bow on it. Honestly, on all of it in Epilogue.
Yeah. Epilogue is. I have some thoughts about Epilogue. I think obviously overall it's very good, but it's a little weird.
Yeah.
But yeah, let's round out Unmasked. Yeah, what would you draw?
You go first.
I think I probably said this in the Cobra episode, but I got to redesign those Cobra costumes. They're pretty lame. That's like the brand manager's worst work, I think.
Yeah, does definitely discount brand manager.
Snakes.
Glad that you mentioned.
I got you. Don't worry.
I got plenty of snakes. You got a large pit? Because
I got 150 yards of snake skin fabric in the back. I'll make you something real nice.
Really, I'm just happy to get rid of it.
Snakes got swords for hands, right?
Yeah, it was cool how they each had a different shaped wrist blade.
Yeah. Yes.
And one guy had the kind where it would stop you from falling off a cliff, which was nice.
Okay, you got giant swords, giant electric swords that come out of here. It's gonna be so good. You got like a gardening trowel, but it'll be very sharp.
It's just men, right? You don't have any goyles working with you.
Because I don't know girl snakes.
I'm glad that the brand manager made a last appearance in our episode to tie a bow on this.
Had to.
Yeah. I almost texted you that like we need to find a way to talk about him, but got resolved.
He comes up naturally. Or
I
feel like I find a way to wedge him in when I need to.
I guess I would redraw the police cars.
Yeah.
I don't really have a great answer.
Yeah.
I'm sure I said that before too.
So here at the end of Batman Beyond, where do you stand on the general design of the future stuff?
Good for its time.
Yeah.
I always prefer the way like Akira handles giant super cities.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if you're looking for giant super cities, megalopolises, there's other, Cowboy Bebop. Japanese stuff does it really well. But I know that this is a limited budget American show, animated overseas. And they had to go with the Bruce Timm aesthetic, which makes it stand out for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. I can argue it from both ways, both sides. How about you?
I feel kind of the same way, where I understand it's a TV show for broadcast television in the 90s, so you only have so much time you can spend on what kind of futuristic sunglasses to give somebody or whatever. But I think some of the vehicles feel like they definitely could have taken another pass at them. And I think the cops are hilarious looking. Like they, with that like open faceplate look and it's just a very strange idea.
The cops they're so absurd that they've worked their way into my heart. And they all have 5s on their chests, which I don't know if I've ever explained.
Is that what it is?
Well, when I did Batman Beyond the White Knight, I had the S, this 5 being S, and it stood for SWAT.
Mm-hmm.
And, when things started getting really rough, the police would wear that uniform instead of, normal future cops.
Yeah, what the hell is that?
I don't know if it's ever been addressed.
I know that I've clocked it in my brain, but I guess I've never really paid attention to it. Yeah, it's just a 5. I thought maybe it could have been a G or something, but that's definitely a 5.
I think the show's designs is quick to go to stripes around a jacket and weird metal plates that float over your anatomy.
Yeah, a lot of floaty metal plates, yeah.
Yeah. Even Superman had one in that Batman Beyond Justice League episode.
Yeah.
A few of those on his shoulders, which, whatever.
Hey, you never know.
Yeah. But yeah, I think overall the show generally, the backgrounds don't bother me. It's the vehicle designs that bother me.
Yeah.
Starting with the Batmobile. Like, I think it works now, kind of, if you tweak it a little bit, but it's just such a blobby, curvy vehicle that I don't think animators ever really understood what it really looked like. I almost wish it had just been CGI animated the whole time because it would have been a little more consistent. But yeah, like right from the get-go, the Batmobile, no thank you. Like I like what I did with it, like fixing it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's an odd choice.
Yeah.
What would you rate this one?
I'm going to go 4 out of 5.
Yeah, I think I'm going to go 4 as well. I think this is it's not the I don't think it's the series finale that any of us would have wanted, but I think I think they go out on a strong foot. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, anything other than a normal 3 is a win.
Yes. All right, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to come back and talk about Epilogue.
You're in my chair.
Yeah. Guess I am.
Where the devil have you been?
I had some stuff to take care of.
Enigma's overrated, especially at 3 a.m. You could have called. I made you some soup, but it's cold.
Sorry. Didn't mean to worry you.
I was worried about Gotham. If Batman's not around.
I've got it covered. Always.
Kent called. Nothing apocalyptic, he just wants your opinion on a case he's working. Said you could meet him at the Metro Tower.
Right. Better suit up.
You should eat something first. Keep up your strength.
When I get back.
You're a stubborn piece of work, you know that.
Just like my old man. Did you see that?
Okay, Epilogue from Season 2 of Justice League Unlimited, which is written by, on Wikipedia it says Dwayne McDuffie, but I think Bruce Timm was a co-writer on this. Or maybe he was a co-story. I can't, because I remember seeing his name in the credits.
Yeah, both he and Dwayne were equally credited with the story, but I don't think they actually wrote it.
Okay, so Dwayne must have just written the script.
I think it was Dan Reba.
Reba directed it.
Oh, okay, sorry.
And in this one, in the future of Batman Beyond, Amanda Waller reveals to an older Terry McGinnis that she created the project Batman Beyond to continue Bruce Wayne's work. Though initially Terry believed that he was a clone of Bruce Wayne, Amanda Waller states that Bruce Wayne is instead Terry's biological father. The truth being revealed to Terry allows him to let go of his anger and fear. He calls his longtime girlfriend Dana in preparation to ask her to marry him. Note, the episode acts as the Justice League season finale, as a crossover, and as the final Batman Beyond episode. It contains many references to prior episodes of Justice League, Batman Beyond, and Batman the Animated Series, such as the death of Terry's father, Ace from the episode Wild Cards, the future Justice League, and much of Terry's Rogues Gallery, the Grey Ghost, and Andrea Beaumont the Phantasm. Final scene also bears a resemblance to the first scene of On Leather Wings, which is the first episode of Batman the Animated Series, as the creative team thought this could possibly be the final Justice League Unlimited episode, fully bringing the universe full circle. So that's pretty interesting that they this was meant to. They produced this thinking this might be just the end of the entire thing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they definitely put a bow on a lot of things.
Yes,
like I think this episode is ambitious.
Oh yeah.
I think they mostly pull it off. I'm looking at some really bad fan art right now. I'm gonna upload to you because that makes for great.
Oh yeah, we both. There's silence for a little bit, and then we both kind of chuckle. Okay, all right.
Well, it wouldn't be a podcast unless we did our shtick, which is sometimes being horrible radio hosts.
All right, this one's okay, and it's compositionally probably could use a little work, but
yeah,
driving things too far off the page there. But
as I was looking at pictures of this episode just now, I'm starting to see the flaws in it. I think I know where you're going to go with it.
I'm interested because my issues with it are more, I guess, ethically, because it's.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah,
let's just get that out of the way.
Yeah, it's
first of all, what is cadmium or whatever
Cadmus
they called it? Cadmus. Okay, so is, I didn't recognize what that was.
Yeah, Cadmus is one of the seemingly many DC Comics like underground laboratory type things. I think in Suicide Squad, I believe Amanda Waller heads up Argus, which is I think something similar. Cadmus, if you remember from the 90s, the Cadmus Project, I believe, was what created the clone Superman Superboy. So it's one of those, it's an underground scientific dealing with aliens type thing.
Okay.
It's a lot to drop on someone if they haven't watched any other episode of Justice League Unlimited.
So they wanted Terry to be Bruce's son, and they didn't know how to get there. Either Terry was born, so they decided to go the route of somehow Bruce or somebody messed with Terry's DNA, and Bruce injected himself into this fucking family, which is very rapey.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's even more rapey because he wasn't even the one to do it.
Yeah. So Amanda was pulling the strings, which is probably good because now Bruce isn't the villain that sucked Terry into this life.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the thing that was killing me watching this episode is Terry, who is now older and much beefier.
He looks like a young John Travolta.
He does.
With bell bottoms.
He does. He kind of looks like he got Botox or something, or like face fillers, because his lips are very, very prominent.
Oh, very plump.
Very plump.
Like
He's
Tom
got,
Hardy.
Yeah, straight nose, but probably been broken too many times as Batman. But yeah, the whole episode is about Terry being mad at Bruce. And then Amanda Waller lays it all out for him, including the fact that not only did she secretly inject his father with Bruce Wayne's DNA, but also there was the one other thing you need to become Batman. So she was going to kill his family.
Yeah. Cut to the Phantasm passing. They're in a darkened parking garage. The Phantasm, without any smoke and mirrors, just walks out from behind a pillar, raises her right hand, and it's just slowly gaining speed. And she's gonna whack them on the back of the head.
Yeah.
And she decides not to. Like, not even that well done.
Yeah, I mean, Andrew. Well, once she took her mask off,
you're Batman.
Once she took her mask off, clearly Andrea was older too. It was probably the first time she put the costume on in like 30 years, so she didn't.
Yeah,
she couldn't muster the energy to do all the smoke and mirrors and stuff. But
right. What's funny is that she's standing there next to the pillar before she moves, hidden. You can see that it is a female body, which is interesting because in the movie it was clearly a man. I mean, until they made the reveal.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and then after she tells him that, he doesn't immediately go, "I'm sorry. Now I'm mad at you. I'm going to kill you now." Like it's just like, "Oh, now I understand." Yeah. You were going to kill my family. Yeah.
I guess that's the beauty of Amanda Waller's character.
Yeah.
She can be in the middle and be corrupt.
Yeah, I don't know much about her. Like, my exposure to her is pretty much what which most people's exposure has been the last handful of years, which is her appearances in the movies and stuff. So I get the idea of what they're going, and every time she shows up, I'm like, why do people keep doing stuff for her? This is not someone who should be trusted.
I think, yeah. You mean the creators or the characters?
The characters.
Okay, yeah, gotcha.
Like, what was it? I forget what movie it was where...
Suicide Squad?
Maybe it was Suicide Squad, where they end up having to like rescue her or something, and it's like, man, just let her go. She's putting these bombs in your brain. She's putting you in these situations. I don't know.
Yeah, she sort of. I guess a character like her works best when there's an uneasy truce, and they have something on you. Or they're holding the keys to the bomb, but they're also helpful. So you have times where she's useful and times where she's a threat. Kind of like if you have a go between you and the cartel. Like a lot of characters, like, oh, I guess they're on my side, but when shit hits the fan, they could easily kill me too. She's kind of like that character.
Yeah. I appreciate her conceptually, but every time she shows up, I'm like, I feel like they're letting her off way too easy.
Yeah, I agree. So we'll just stick with the stuff that didn't work, and then we can get into the stuff that did work. I like Batman on a swing set talking to Ace. Mm-hmm. That's a nice visual. Him holding someone's hand as they die is neat. I don't know if that needs to be part of this episode. If you're wrapping up Batman animated series and Terry and Amanda Waller, I don't know if you need the Justice League stuff. Or I get having it there, but the death of this character, well, why is that beat in here? Did I miss something?
Well, I believe it's in there because Terry thinks that Bruce is someone who only cares about himself and his only focus is the mission, et cetera, et cetera. And so Amanda is recounting the story where he showed a infinite level of compassion towards some other.
They mentioned Cadmus, though. The little girl or someone in that scene mentions Cadmus again.
Oh, so yeah, she was the one. She was being experimented on by Cadmus, right? Is that the deal?
Yeah, maybe. I kind of missed it.
Because she talks about how they were putting wires into her brain and doing experiments and stuff. Yeah.
So, I don't know. Like, I feel like that if you're going to show that, I would try to make it more relevant. Not just, here's a random story of how I know Bruce is a heart. Also, a little girl died.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's the...
Like, if she died, if Amanda... Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
If Waller said, when that girl died, it gave me the idea to do X. So I took matters in my own hand and I realized X, Y, Z. Mm-hmm. I guess I just didn't feel like that was happening.
Well, it wasn't supposed to be something that... was it... It's more for Terry's benefit than anything else. And I don't think it's necessarily meant to be directly linked into what she ends up doing. Unless I can't remember if that the wrap up of that is her saying that's when I realized that there always needs to be a Batman or something like that.
Right. It feels like they wanted to put a bow on Justice League, Batman, and Batman Beyond. Mm-hmm. And to the episode's credit, a ton of cameos. Like, you really do check a lot of the boxes, including the Mask of the Phantasm.
Right.
So I like that you got a nod to all of that, but I feel like maybe what happened was they were like, well, we need to put Justice League in there a little bit. What if we did this? And I feel like following the Justice League path led them to this idea, which I don't know. I kind of want to see the version of this where they don't try to talk about Justice League as well.
Mm-hmm. Well, it is Justice League Unlimited, so I guess you gotta kind of make it relevant.
I know. Yep, that's fair. Yeah. Totally valid. It is not a Batman show. I forgot.
The stranger thing is I was looking at the IMDb trivia, and it says that where the hell is it? Although it's ambiguous on screen, producer-writer Dwayne McDuffie confirmed that the black and white sequences were Terry's imagination of what will happen if he resigns as Batman, not flashbacks.
Oh, okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think that's not clear at all.
Right.
Because I took that stuff as this was like they were showing us the catalyst for him going to Amanda Waller in the first place. Yeah. You know? Because especially the way that they are very clever about tying into the different sequences based on like whatever the last thing they talk about in the flashback is the first thing that they talk about in the next sequence. You know? It seems pretty clear that it seemed to me like before he went to see Amanda Waller, he got into a fight with Bruce Wayne and then left him there to die trying to pick his pills up off the floor.
Yeah. Ooh, they made Bruce so old that he wasn't even heroic looking anymore.
Yeah.
It's tough to see.
Yeah. Which is, I mean, I think that's part of it too. I think he's supposed to be, if at least if this is Terry's way that he sees Bruce, he's.
I don't know why that's funny. That's how he chooses to picture Bruce.
Well, you know, as someone he's basically turned into the guy from at the end of There Will Be Blood, where it's just him and his house, and the only thing he cares about is his mission. You know.
Yeah, that's fair. Do you think when Terry says that Bruce is reckless, manipulative, I forget what the adjectives he uses, selfish, stubborn, he uses people to get what he wants and discards them without... Do you think all that's true? I know Terry thinks it's true, but...
I don't... No, So if we're talking about how I see Bruce as a character, no.
Yeah.
I do think that gets leaned on very heavily across a lot of things, a lot of Batman stories, because it seems like an easy way to make him kind of an antagonist. But I think that there's plenty of instances where it shows that he's driven and single-minded, but he's not without his compassion. And I think he does care about all of his kids, you know?
Yeah.
Which is why I get really frustrated when the go-to story for any Batman protege is, okay, now they have to get mad at Bruce because Bruce is being too hard on them or wants them to do something that they don't really want to do. Or I feel like it's just too easy for that to be the angle you're going here.
Yeah. It's interesting. I do think Bruce is obsessive. I'm not a therapist or a doctor, so I don't want to say he's OCD or ADHD, whatever. I don't know what you would say he could be, but you know, doing this for decades, getting more and more focused, he's probably going to allow himself to get a little weird in his drive. You know, I think he does manipulate people, but he still loves Robin, all the Robins. He would do anything for them, but you know, sometimes even when you're married, you have ways of accidentally manipulating your spouse and vice versa.
Sure.
You know, it's just what humans do. It's not necessarily evil.
Is there something you want to tell us,
my dumb
Sean?
life all the time. Don't I? Oh, she's in the other room.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it makes Bruce a really complex character when you've got this idea that he is this father figure to these other younger characters, and so you don't want him to be completely cut off, and you want to show that he has feelings for them. But you he's also still a guy who dresses up in body armor to go fight criminals and has dedicated his entire life to that. So there's going to be some sort of friction there always, because as I'm sure they've said many times in the comic, this is nobody's fight but his. And so anybody who gets drafted into it, I feel like eventually is going to get burned out on it. And that's not something he can ever let happen to himself. And so, but when you get to the thing like they show in this, what I didn't like is not knowing that the black and white stuff was just in his mind and not actually flashbacks, thinking they were flashbacks. I didn't love the idea that Terry confronts him with, where it's like, you think you're so important, Batman is so important that it needs to be you and you can't ever die and blah, 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 blah. I don't think that's something that Bruce Wayne would really do. Like, I don't think he's so full of himself that he would actively clone himself to make sure that nobody else was Batman. I don't know. Maybe he would. I guess it depends on how you approach it. It makes him very a tricky needle to thread when you get into this stuff.
The first time I heard about this episode was actually from Scott Snyder. I was going to draw 11 pages, I think, for him for Batman Detective Comics number 27, which was an anthology. And he mentioned this episode. And he's like, you got to watch it because we're going to have Bruce having cloned more and more Bruces all the time. So we're going to see different versions of Gotham in the future, in the past, and blah, 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 blah. I was like, oh, that sounds amazing. I can't believe I missed that episode. I was in college when this came out, so I didn't have TV. So I kind of missed out on a lot of pop culture shit that was going on. And when I was doing my own Batman Beyond, people were asking me, they mentioned Cadmus, and I was like, what? And I had to like do research to figure out what people were asking me. And I, once I figured it out, I was like, no, I think my Terry is, well, first of all, he's half Asian.
Yes.
And I just don't see Bruce cloning himself like that. I don't think he would go that far.
Yeah.
He really does seem to think that Batman is some kind of a curse. So if he cares about these kids, I don't think he would want that curse to stay with them forever. Well, maybe he feels like he can stay with it forever, but these kids eventually got to grow up.
Well, I was just thinking about that because isn't him cloning himself actually like the ultimate dad move to do as far as Batman goes? Because it is his fight. So I don't want to, as a dad, he doesn't want to have to pass this on to his kids. So what if I just clone myself and then it can always be me and nobody else has to live with this burden? But of course, that's the kind of decision that makes sense to a dad trying to protect his kids, but does not make a ton of sense to the kids themselves.
Well, I mean, if you meet yourself as a kid, I feel like you wouldn't think, oh, that's me exactly. You would think it's sort of like another Robin.
Right. Yeah.
I mean, I know that he may be he would like to keep the burden on himself forever and ever.
Well,
if option B is cloning myself, it's like, okay, that makes sense on paper.
Yeah.
But one day you're going to meet this kid, and this kid's going to be more of a Robin, really, than another Bruce Wayne.
Well, the thing that I think knowing this new angle brings into question is, does Bruce know this? Because when Terry confronts him about being his son in the black and white stuff, and then you see him at the end and he's acting very fatherly, but they never talk about it. So does Bruce actually know that Amanda Waller actually did this?
Right. It's actually better, I think, if he doesn't.
I agree. Yeah.
But he hid his reaction in that moment.
Yeah. And I think, I guess, where do you come down on this as an explanation for stuff? Because for me, I don't know why they did this. I think Bruce not being involved is the only way that it makes sense, as we just kind of talked about. But like, why does he have to be Bruce's son? Like, what or whatever you want to call it? It's just, I don't know. It seems really unnecessary.
If Bruce really wanted this to go on after he was dead, there's been a bunch of. Remember when that robot thought it was Batman?
Yes.
And it was doing a pretty good job.
Yeah.
And that was years ago. With all of Bruce's intelligence resources, he could have made a bunch of robot Batmen, just lined them all up, and they all activate right after the other one dies.
Oh, like
he
Kingdom
could have kept
Come.
it going. Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like, I know there's the risk of AI and when it goes off the rails and all that, so maybe he wouldn't do that. But I don't know. I just don't know if Batman would, if he made it so that there would be a never-ending line of Batman for always and always. What that also saying is Gotham's never going to be fixed.
True.
Like, would he ever accept a Gotham that no longer needed Batman? Which is, of course, not a new question.
Yeah. I do think it isn't funny though, because at the same time, like, I don't think ultimately Batman would trust anybody else to do the job as well as he can.
Yeah. Like, at the same time, I think one of the interesting things about Bruce is he can't stop.
Right.
Like, he likes it. He clearly enjoys doing it. He kind of wants the fight to keep going on, but he also wants it to stop, and he wants people to be safe, and he dreams of a world without Batman. But at the same time, he kind of doesn't want a world without Batman, because then what is he going to do with himself?
Yeah. Yeah, you know? That's why I always thought the ending of the Nolan trilogy was such bullshit. Like, Bruce Wayne's not just going to leave. Come on.
Yeah.
Like, that whole...
Well, he gave it to Robin. Robin's got it now.
Now he can go drink coffee in Italy or whatever. No. Even the idea... I always had trouble with the idea that he just quit being Batman for those 8 years before the movie starts. It's like, I don't know. Like, I mean, I guess it's kind of interesting, especially if his body's as beat up as they'd say it is in the movie, but whatever. Anyway, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, I agree with you. I didn't buy the whole, like, do people even remember Batman anymore? Like, it's only been 8 years. Even the comic book Kingdom Come, which is great, I believe the premise was no superhero has been seen for decades.
Yes.
And people are questioning whether or not they were even real in the first place. Which, okay, so there's no photos, there's no video, there's no interviews. I'm pretty sure people aren't going to forget that in 10 years.
Well, in Kingdom Come, the superheroes are gone, and they've been replaced by essentially 90s image anti-heroes. So they're still out there. They're just causing a lot of, like, damage. But they haven't seen the original guys in like 10 years. It's been Batman, Superman, Green Lantern, all the original DC guys have just left.
Okay, I misremembered it then. That sounds a lot more realistic.
But either way.
No offense. So well done, Mark Waid and Alex Ross.
Yeah. But I mean, even in The Dark Knight Returns, he's like in his 60s or something. So his body can't do it anymore, you know?
Right.
But as far as the show goes, though, do you think that they needed to do this in the show? Do you think it? Because I don't really think this is an element that needed to be added to the Terry McGinnis Bruce Wayne story.
Is there a version of this that you think would satisfy what you're talking about?
I don't know. I guess the question then is how would we want Batman Beyond to end? And this is as good as of an end as you could ask for.
I mean, it takes big swings.
It does,
and you are normally all about big swings, whether they hit or miss.
Yeah. I guess it's the kind of thing where it's the kind of big swing that I don't like because it makes everything feel really small. Mm-hmm. You know, it's like finding out that he's Bruce Wayne's son makes just the universe feel small, and the idea that these two characters just kind of fell together and created this new version of Batman. It kind of takes away some of the specialness of that. You know, it's like finding out that Sandman killed Peter Parker's Uncle Ben in Spider-Man 3. It's like, of all the people out there, why does it have to be Sandman? You know, that sort of stuff. Mm-hmm. Even going back to Batman 89, where it's like, the Joker killed his parents. Like, well, okay, fine, whatever.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I guess if the episode is designed to tie a bow on it and to be a button for where all of this might go.
Yeah.
It does both those things.
That's true.
It fits the cameos in. It acknowledges a lot of different histories and ties them together. The logic and the science are questionable. And certainly the morality. But I don't know. Did I need this episode? Does it fix my problems with Batman Beyond in some way? I don't know. I mean, it's got more meat to it than any of the other episodes. Like, as a standalone episode, I was going to give it a 5, but now that we talk about the things we don't like, I'm more leaning towards a 4.
Yeah, I think I'm still a 5 on this one. Honestly, I think this is, faults and all, I think it's probably the best episode of Batman Beyond.
Yeah, except for the first one, the first two-parter when I opened it up. Yeah, this is definitely a banger.
Yeah.
It's so good that it makes you question. The fact that we're so invested emotionally in it is a sign that it succeeded in some way.
The fact that we haven't really taken too many tangents off of it also is an indicator of quality. But like, I'm thinking back, I'm looking at my notes. The stuff with Waller is just so wild because after she finishes that story, she's like, and then I remembered that God gave us free will, And I'm like, gave you free will to fuck with this kid's destiny?
The God stuff, I don't like that, actually. I forgot about that. Yeah.
I mean,
a show that never talked about God.
I think it's kind of fitting for a character like Amanda Waller to say something like that, and then in support of actively sabotaging or directing somebody else's life, because it's the kind of unrealized, unaware hypocrisy that I think a character like that would definitely do. But it's, again, I don't know why Terry doesn't say I'm sorry, what did you just say? You were going to kill my family.
Yeah, that needs to be fixed. I think I would have ended the episode where Terry is not Batman's kid. Like, they flirt with it, but it turns out he's not, but he still sees him as a dad anyway. Would be better. And then in the end where he's like, just like my old man, maybe that line would land differently. So I guess I don't like the results of what this episode does, but I did like that they ended, that they tied a bow on so much.
Yeah. I like that we got to see a couple of the bad guys again. Shriek was back briefly.
Oh, yeah.
Part of the
they did
the Iniquity Collective, which might be the worst name for a supervillain team I've ever heard.
Is that what they're called?
Yeah, the Iniquity Collective.
That's terrible.
Yeah, it's awful.
Iniquity Collective.
I thought
they got they got ink in. They got a lot of the hit characters in. It was good to see.
Yeah, I thought the animation was great. It actually made me want to go and watch Justice League Unlimited, because I think Batman Beyond, the animation was getting pretty stiff, and I thought the fight scenes in this were great. Like the fight with the Royal Flush Gang I thought was really good. I loved the designs on the Royal Flush Gang. They were pretty wild. Yeah, I just like, as a production, I think it's great.
Yeah, I think the animation was definitely better overall on Justice League Unlimited.
Yeah, it's so funny though, because it's so funny that the change in design of these characters to the more stripped down Bruce Timm thing, it like, by the nature of the designs, made the animation stiffer because the characters themselves ended up stiffer, you know? Whereas the original animated series, it was a lot more fluid to the designs and the fluid to the movement. And then once everybody got those like really hard angles to the bodies, it seemed like the animation started doing the same thing, and it was a lot more simplistic. So it's nice to see it get a little inventive here.
Yeah. I definitely think when I was young and I saw the season 4, the redesigned animated series season, I remember thinking, this is my favorite. It's streamlined, it's clean, it's all warm colors for the most part. But as I got older, I still went back to the original TAS, which was softer.
Yeah.
And you're right. When they forced Bruce Timm's style even more on the animation aesthetic, the characters moved more like mannequins.
Yeah.
And season 1 through 3, or whatever you want to call it, first 66 episodes, the animators sort of had more say. Like, some of it even looked straight up anime sometimes. But there's a reason why that style works better for flow. You know?
Yeah.
But I can see why Bruce Timm's style is cheaper and easier and quicker.
Yeah, absolutely. What would you draw? This is the final. The final. What would you draw?
I actually like Terry's outfit with the leather jacket, the bootcut jeans, the sideburns. He's a little 70s, which I think is cool. And then when he's breaking into the house at the beginning, and you're not sure who he is, and then suddenly he pulls out a batarang. I almost wish they had another shot where they held on that for a second and gave you a chance to be like, oh man. But they kind of go over it so quickly when Amanda shows up that you kind of miss that beat. But yeah, I think I would do that whole sequence.
Yeah. I really like the Royal Flush Gang in this. I think I would want to draw something with them, because it's a very cool mix of characters doing some pretty wild things. I also, I like I think the designs for the future Justice League is really good.
I like how Hawk Girl is in a tracksuit.
Yes. No mask or anything, just well, it's a good counterpoint to the Royal Flush member who's just wearing a one-piece bathing suit.
Yeah, I would not want to draw a long hair girl whose hair goes forever. Like, I already don't like drawing long hair. 'Cause, like, the question is, like, how do I end it? Is it curled? Is it just chopped off in a line? Now you have to draw it wicked long. Yeah, no thanks.
Yeah, but if it's long enough, then you don't have to draw like legs and stuff.
That's true.
Treat it like a cape. You never have to,
Yeah, that's fair.
You could much easier to cheat.
Yep.
Yeah, I think that's gonna do it for Batman Beyond. How do you feel about Batman Beyond and Batman the Animated Series? Looking back on everything we've covered.
The one new thought that I can throw at you is, I wonder. I was watching something about the Power Rangers the other day, and the hosts were saying, one host is my age, and he's like, I was just too old for this. And the other host is younger, so it hit him just right. And the older host said, it's so ADD. It just doesn't stop. It's just constantly guitar music and fighting and quick cut. And I wonder when they were making Batman Beyond, if they were looking at Power Rangers and going, we really got to make this for short attention spans, and we're sort of kind of competing with Power Rangers now. Let's keep it active and like enough of this like slow storytelling bullshit. We need to be a little quicker here. I wonder if it was conscious, not maybe directly because of Power Rangers, which came out first.
Yeah, I think it's probably just a general Japanese influence overall. I think as animation style got better in America, they started weaving a lot more of that stuff in, and I think that Batman the Animated Series is a complete miracle that it exists the way that it does, because I think as the series went on, they did probably either realize in-house or get some sort of mandate from the studio that it needed to be more attention grabbing, it needed to be bigger, it needed to be louder, which is where you end up in Batman Beyond. Unfortunately, it's just kind of, the story kind of takes a back seat to the guitar music and the fights.
Right.
So I think it
was good before the suits got a hold of it.
Yeah, if that's what happened. I mean, who knows? But I think that exactly. I just think that it's a miracle that show exists the way it does.
It is. It sort of feels like it came out under the radar. People were paying attention, but they kind of weren't. They're like, whatever, give us a show. The movies are a hit. We're not going to question you too much. Go ahead. Batman with a square jaw, awesome.
Yeah.
And they got away with doing a lot of great artistic stuff that was more even aimed at adults as well as kids in a vacuum. And then it feels like this suits got a hold of it, and they started to give it the treatment, whatever the treatment is,
Yeah.
I do think that if Batman Beyond had come out and there was never any such thing as Batman the Animated Series, how would we view it? And I guess one way I look at it is Batman Beyond gets a pass because the animated series was so good.
Yeah.
You still have Kevin Conroy. You still have the continuity is there. Like, I feel like if I am rating Batman Beyond a 7 out of 10, it's because it's connected to the stuff that I love. If it just came out by itself, I would give it a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
Or 5. I might not have even watched it, honestly,
Yeah, I don't think I would have watched it. Because when it was on, I was kind of aging out anyway. And I remember I think I watched a couple episodes and I was like, and I just never kept up with it. But I agree. And it's interesting because, like, think about what you just said. And then think about how in Batman Beyond, there are very few callbacks to anything that came before it. So like the shadow looms so large, and it's coasting on the goodwill of the animated series to the point where it doesn't even need to have the Joker show up or any of these other characters that you would expect in a Batman show. All you need is Kevin Conroy's voice, basically.
Yeah. My quick take would be great concept.
Yeah.
Great talent involved, of course. Great writers, great voice actors. Took big chances, but it left me wanting. Like, it was just lacking in what I was really looking for out of the concept.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah. So there's 52 episodes of Batman Beyond. I think we should rank them. all in order. Start.
Yeah, I'm gonna go to the bathroom real quick.
No, I think that's gonna wrap up our coverage of Batman Beyond. But before we go, we do have some listener questions we wanted to get to. Let's see here. Pull this guy up here. Okay. If either you or Sean did a one-shot comic of one of the episodes, Batman the Animated Series or Beyond, which one would it be and why? Would either of you change or add anything for the comic? Example, Batman is lit by fire the entire issue, or Nightwing educates Alfred on the dangers of airplane boners.
I like that a handful of these questions mention airplane boners and hentai.
Yeah, I guess people, at least a couple people listen to the show.
I think we've answered that one before, because I actually keep thinking about pitching DC a series where a new artist and writing team tackle one episode and just keep the dialogue the same, or don't do the hire a writer, just hire the artist to reinterpret it. But there seems to be some infighting under Warner Brothers where the media side doesn't always interact with the comic book side. Mm-hmm. And there's like territory, and I'm not sure exactly. It might not be as easy as what you think.
Yeah,
unfortunately.
Yeah, I think I do remember answering this a similar question before, and I think my answer, I can't think of a specific episode, but I do remember my answer before, which is what I would stick to, which is I would pick an episode that I didn't particularly like, because first of all, I don't want to be the guy who grabs Heart of Ice and fucks it up. And second of all, like, that's not really that interesting to me, to take something that's undeniably great and just redo it again. So I would rather pick one of the ones that I find has like a good concept, but the execution is kind of lacking, and see if I can kind of dig into that.
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Business Sean would say, give me Heart of Ice.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I could sell those pages. It's the best episode. It's mostly known. Mr. Freeze is a slam dunk. Art Sean would say See No Evil, where that guy's invisible.
Oh, yeah.
And he won't leave his daughter and his wife alone.
Yeah.
You have a car chase with like half a car, which is pretty cool.
That's right.
And I know no one else would want that episode, and I would try to rock it.
Yeah. See, and I think, it's tough, because like if you've got, say you do your idea and you've got, say, 12 issues by all of the top names that you can find to do these things, are you going to stand out? Are you, as Sean Murphy, going to stand out doing Heart of Ice, or are you going to stand out taking something like that episode and just kicking its ass,
Right. And where are you in your career?
Sure.
If you're up and comer and you want to get attention, maybe you're better off taking a lesser known story and doing a really good job getting attention that way.
Yeah.
But if you're Jim Lee or something, then you should probably just take Heart of Ice, because we can market that.
I'll do Heart of Ice, but only in splash pages that I can sell for $10,000 a piece.
Right. Yeah. And Huntress is there.
Yes. Okay. Riddle me this disastrous duo. In 10 years' time, 2034, Batman becomes public domain. Will this breathe new creative life into the character as writers and artists can explore new ideas unshackled by corporate overlords? Or will this cause an oversaturation in the market that turns off a general audience? You said you had a lot you wanted to say about this. So I'll just say my general thoughts about this are, this stuff is not as easy as I think people think it is. So
Agree.
Just because Batman becomes public domain does not mean anything else related to the character does. So I guess that means you can do whatever you want with Batman, but you can't use certain bat signals. You can't use certain characters. You probably can't even use Gotham City, frankly. There's a lot of stuff that it's not just as easy as, oh, great, now it's a free-for-all.
Totally
one
agree.
of the things that has always confused me, and I still don't know the answer to, is why the Fleischer Superman cartoons, those are public domain. Not Superman, but the cartoons themselves. So I have no idea how that works. So it gets very complicated.
Yeah. Obviously, you and I are not lawyers. I think the easy answer, and I think what this person's asking is, it's been suggested that there's way too much Batman out there. Mm-hmm. And if you have Batman as public domain character, and everyone just starts making their own Batman, putting it out there on the internet, will it flood the market? Will a cream rise to the top? What will happen to Batman IP? Will it cause oversaturation in the market? Yeah, in theory, I guess it could, but practically speaking, and the long answer, and this goes to what you're talking about, is in 1939, it was Batman. He had his look. The Batmobile was a red convertible. Mm-hmm. There was no Robin. There's no Alfred. There's no Batcave. Mm-hmm. That all came, I think, in like later on in the 40s.
There might be an Alfred. I can't totally remember, but yeah,
no, there's not.
Oh, there's not.
Looked it up. Yeah, no Alfred yet. So you can't copyright an idea. You can't copyright the idea that a guy puts on a mask and fights crime.
Right.
If the guy's called Batman and puts on a mask and fights crime, yes, you can copy those ideas altogether. When public domain is initiated, or when your IP runs out, however you want to word it, that says, okay, so so Winnie the Pooh now is public domain, as it was originally written in the books.
Right.
Not the Disney kind, not with the red shirt, not with the Piglet or whatever other fucking characters Disney created. Just the original burst of whatever was created at the very beginning is technically public domain. Yeah. But even then, get a lawyer, because they're going to fight. And then the question is it worth it for you? So imagine I am working for DC Comics and I'm a suit and I'm being paid $6 figures a year. Let's play a game in Batman's public domain. What would I do? Well, okay. Are there going to be 50 Batman books by independent creators hitting the market at once? 50 people might try. Now, is the quality going to be good? Because last I checked, it's really hard to create a comic. And if you're that good, you probably want to be paid for it. And somebody privately making Batman comics you're probably not going to get the quality nearly as well as DC Comics itself is going to get there.
Sure.
So am I worried about those 50 books? No. But let's say a few of them are good. All right, well, I'm going to send out a bunch of cease and desist letters. I don't even have to talk to a lawyer. I'm just going to scare people and let them know that it will be a fight if they try to move forward. That's probably going to shut down most of it right there. Yeah. And then, let's say they do Batman. I'm like, okay, is the Batmobile black? Because that's infringement right there, because the black Batmobile didn't exist until 1945 or 44 or whatever.
Right.
So if you're using a Batmobile, it ought to be red, it ought to be Cadillac, it ought to be convertible. No Alfred. Or what if you draw the symbol weird in one panel and it looks a little bit too close to a symbol from the 1980s, which we own? Well, I would get litigious with you, you know? And I'm not even getting into, does Gotham look like Gotham? Is it too close to Michael Keaton? Like, forget it. It's just not worth it for you to fuck with, is I think what I'm trying to say here.
Yeah.
And even if you did spend $100 million on a Batman movie and you only had a red convertible and you didn't have Alfred and you did all your best to like do a Batman that wasn't really Batman, if you made $100 million of profit or $1 billion, certainly I'm going to come after you to get a taste of that.
Yes.
Yeah. So even if you dunk, it doesn't matter. I'm still going to come after you.
Yeah.
Because it's my job in this scenario, you know?
Especially with something like Batman, where people have been creating stories and characters monthly, consistently for 80 years or close to 100 years. Yeah. You think you're probably not going to... It's like the South Park joke. The Simpsons did it. It's like Batman's done it. You know, it's even now as writers, trying to come up with new things for Batman to do is very hard. So if you're taking a swing at making your own Batman thing and you happen to make something that is surprisingly similar to some one shot that came out in 1992, this is probably an instance in which you're going to get a phone call.
Yeah, absolutely. And, you know, it's not just... In my scenario, I'm a greedy suit who's getting paid to be the cops. Like, I get... But if DC doesn't take action and try to protect their shit, you know, Disney, Marvel, Warner Brothers, like, companies need to protect their ideas. Yeah. Like, if they don't show due diligence, and there's a case one day and the judge determines that this company has been negligent in doing due diligence, therefore the people in question get to use Batman, well, that's DC's fault. Company has no choice but to be a corporate evil overlord sometimes. That's sort of the rules of capitalism.
Yeah.
And it's not my opinion. I'm just telling you what the rules are.
Yeah, it's funny how granular stuff can get too. Because I remember for years, Todd McFarlane was trying to get the rights to. He bought all of the assets of whatever the company was that published Miracle Man, the British company that published Miracle Man, because he wanted Miracle Man. And so he put Miracle Man appears in one issue of Spawn, and never again, because and he made a statue. He made a statue, a Miracle Man statue, which if you try to find it now is referred to as the Man of Miracles, because he realized only after the fact that all he bought was the logo. So that was the only thing. He couldn't use the name. He couldn't use anything else. He just bought one specific version of the logo. And so that's why it ended up in a huge lawsuit with him and Neil Gaiman and Marvel trying to get the rights to Miracle Man. So like this stuff gets, when characters like this have been around and they change so much, it gets really difficult. Yeah. Now you you had to deal with this stuff on Zorro, right? Because Zorro is public domain, but you actually went through licensing the character because there was stuff that you wanted to use that wasn't public domain, right?
So I consider myself friends with the Zorro people, certainly colleagues. So I don't want to say anything that the lawyer would disagree with. It's his job to talk about some of that stuff, not mine. Sure. But technically, parts of Zorro could be considered to be public domain, because the Count of Capistrano, I think that's what the original book was published in 1919 or something. But Zorro wore green and red on the cover. Yeah. I don't know if he had a tornado. I think he had a whip. I don't know if he did the Z on the chest. Some of that stuff was Disney later on in the 50s and 60s. Right. So it's not like the gates of Zorro opened up all at once. The other interesting thing is there's been people in other countries that have tried to do Zorro things, like a play, I believe. And the rules of IP and when stuff gets public domain is different in every country. Right.
Yeah, that's the other thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it complicates things even more than what we've already been dealing with. Now, I would say that Zorro is very litigious and protective. To their credit, they're sort of pioneers in a way. In this, these people have owned Zorro for a long time, and there's, dozens of employees and jobs at stake. You should try to protect it if you can, So it's their right to do what they're doing, and they fight really hard, and I can see why. But yeah, when I saw that there's people that own Zorro had filed thousands of IP claims, marks, like different ways of writing the word Zorro. They literally thousands of things. Like you can see these people are very on it, so it's probably better to go to them and try to make a deal rather than risk being a dick and just taking it and let's see what happens. Yeah. So that's why I decided to work with them, and they were so easy to work with. It ended up being totally worth it because their resources and connections helped me push the book and get it into, like Tarantino's hands, stuff like that. Yeah. So I liked it. I played ball with them. I learned a lot. I'd love to do Zorro again one day. In fact, I asked them if they had any other IP because, I'd love to do a Blade Runner book one day. Sure. But I don't know how easy it's going to be to lock that down.
Sounds like not easy.
Yeah. The Blade Runner people could be a bunch of dicks. Or if I wanted to do a Jurassic Park story, it's like, at least with the Zorro people, they understood comics. They saw the value I was bringing. They were really nice to work with. And man, having nice business partners makes a big difference. So yeah, I'd happily work with them again.
And, that's not even to speak to trademark, right?
Right.
It's like Batman, is it Bat-Man the first time it shows up? Because Batman, one word, definitely trademarked DC Comics.
Right.
So, The Dark Knight, guarantee you that's trademarked. Did you know that Marvel and DC share the trademark on the word superhero?
No.
Yeah, because it was a word created by, I believe it was created by DC, but they both started using it, and so they decided just to make it easy, they would just both own it.
Yeah, that's probably good that they will share that and Man-Thing.
Yeah.
Or what is it? Sorry.
Yeah, you could keep Man-Thing. We'll put ours in a swamp.
We'll go Swamp Thing. Captain Marvel, we'll just not talk about it for a while.
Great example of what we're talking about. Captain Marvel, yeah. Okay, next question. Thank you for the podcast. I will re-listen to it again one day. Well, thank you very much for listening. Here are my questions. We got a lightning round here.
Yeah, why don't you and I alternate?
Okay.
These are quick.
Mr. Freeze versus the Riddler. Who wins?
You go ahead.
I'm going to say Mr. Freeze probably on that one.
Yeah, you bring in a gun, do a question mark fight.
Yeah.
Of course he's going to win.
He wouldn't even get the riddle out. His ass would be frozen.
I would say, though, it would be fun to do a story where the Riddler goes after Mr. Freeze and wins.
Yeah, just for the hell of it. Why not?
He takes his wife's frozen corpse, does something creative with it, and puts it in a maze or something. All right, so Catwoman versus Joker. Who wins? Ooh, man. If it's a fight in the ring, she wins.
Yes.
I think she's more capable. She's probably stronger, quicker, more athletic.
Yeah.
He's got brain power, so if it's like him planning ahead of time, he could probably. It depends on the context because they're both really capable.
Yeah, I feel like that would turn into Catwoman versus Joker, and then Joker being like, "Actually, no, here's Harley," and then he would send Harley in, and then when her back was turned, he would shoot her.
Ooh, yeah, it's fair.
Okay,
right.
Two-Face versus Clayface. Who wins? I'm gonna say Two-Face. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
Wait.
I'm gonna say Clayface because
I thought. Yeah, I'm with you. Sorry.
I think Clayface could really take advantage of Two-Face's obsessiveness and OCD over numbers by being able to split into multiple people.
Right.
And that would probably mess him up enough that he would get the upper hand.
He could turn himself into a bunch of coins.
He
throw
sure
himself,
could.
And Two-Face would be just perplexed. He would just shit himself, fall to his knees, like, I don't know what to do.
Mm-hmm. He could, if you want to get really heady with it, he splits into two people. One that's Harvey Dent, and that's entirely Two-Face, and then it becomes very existential. Ooh, it's an existential battle.
That's good. It's a good thing Clayface is kind of a moron, because if he was smart, he could play mind games.
Yeah.
Like imagine Joker's brain and Two-Face's body.
Didn't you literally write that book?
Imagine how great it would be, everybody. No, I meant Joker. Yeah, I guess you're right. I did do that.
Well, technically, Clayface wasn't really part of the story, but he was just sort of a cipher.
He was being raped by the Joker as Batman with Terry's mom.
Yeah, great. Excellent.
All right, moving on. Penguin versus Poison Ivy. Who wins? I'm going to go Poison Ivy.
Yeah, I think so, too. I think Penguin is deceptively clever, I think. I think people, obviously, as we know from the show, and most iterations of the Penguin, people don't take him too seriously, and so that's how he gets the upper hand. So
yeah, he's got gun, birds, and rain gear. Yeah. She's got nature.
Yeah, but Penguin's got a good mind for this stuff. Like you could say, like, if you swapped out Sophia Falcone for Poison Ivy, that's a still pretty good matchup in that show.
So in TS universe, Penguin's kind of lonely, and he had that episode where he dated Veronica Vreeland, and he let her get pretty close.
That's true.
If Poison Ivy played that card and just put a knife in his back when he wasn't looking, she could probably get the best of him.
Yeah, that's true. It's two people.
The Penguin in as played by Colin Farrell would be a lot more capable.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think it's
don't let these goyles get too close to you.
It's two people. Well, I mean, all she could be is she could wear certain lipstick that when she kisses him, he thinks that she's his mother, and then she'd get the upper hand pretty easily.
She wears lipstick like oil, thinking that she can drown him like a bird in an oil spill. But
that's a lot of
lipstick that's made of Blue Dawn, which, as we know from the commercials, cleans up oily ducks.
Yeah, thinking ahead. That sounds like something they would have done in Batman and Robin.
Sure, just throw it in there. Robin versus Killer Croc. Whose turn is it?
Yours.
Killer Croc. Yeah. Well, which Robin?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Robin. I think Robin's just smarter. Like if we're going Dick Grayson, I think Dick Grayson outsmarts Killer Croc pretty easily.
Well, again, is this a 6-issue series or is this a cage match between the characters?
Right. Yeah.
Cage match, Killer Croc. 6-issue series, Robin.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
This is a good matchup.
Bane.
This is yours.
Bane versus Man-Bat. Well, I don't think Bane. I think Bane skips leg day quite a bit. So as long as Man-Bat stays like kind of above him in the air, I don't think Bane's jumping too high to get him. So I think Man-Bat might actually have... I mean, all he's got to do is swing by once and cut that venom cord, and he's done.
Right. Yeah, that dangly little... Yeah.
Yeah.
A strong breeze could unplug him.
I mean, if he's in a rush leaving his apartment and he catches it on the banister down the stairs, he's done.
It's like, all right, I got keys, cell phone, check, money. What else? Oh, tube.
Damn it. I say that's a very specific reference because I have done that many times in my own home, and it is always debilitating.
Yep. Lately I've been getting door handles stuck in my pocket.
Yeah. Oh, that's the fucking worst.
Okay.
Oh, it makes you feel like such a dipshit.
Like, am I not waiting for the door to fully open? What am I doing wrong here?
It's the worst.
And when you try to walk, you're like, ugh, yeah. You get like a stunt man being pulled towards a green screen, you know. Luckily, I've never been around someone who saw all of it, but yeah. I'm telling you all this.
Thankfully, isn't that simultaneously the best and worst feeling when you do something so stupid and then you realize after the shock has worn off that nobody saw you do it? Like if you drop something or break something in your house and you're like, oh my God, thank God nobody was here to see me do that.
Right. Yeah. Doesn't make it any worse or any better, I guess, sometimes. Ra's al Ghul versus Scarecrow.
I don't know, because I guess that would, well...
Like a team up.
Yeah.
It's a good fight.
That's
cage match. I don't know. Scarecrow has his gas stuff he could use to freak Ra's al Ghul and convince him that he's going to die one day.
But does Ra's al Ghul have any sort of like immunity to that gas? I guess there's no reason why he would, but I don't know. Who knows?
Is Poison Ivy immune to Scarecrow's poison?
Oh, I have no idea. I don't think so.
Because she can't be poisoned, right?
Oh,
but he's not using poison. He's using
idea.
agent. I thought she couldn't be poisoned, or whoever she kisses gets poisoned.
Sure, why not?
I know those are two different things, but sorry. Batman versus Harley, who wins? Well, I mean, I've basically been exploring this for like 8 years.
Love wins.
And White Knight Harley won by, embarrassing Bruce and Joker and showing them how they need to get along. Honestly, White Knight really is a love story between Bruce and Joker, including like a shirtless fight scene at the end. It's basically them finally having sex on a rooftop, and Joker wins, and he immediately feels bad about it, as you tend to do after you
force somebody into sleeping with you.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, I almost ended my career, but you swooped in. All right.
Anyway,
any more?
That's the last one. Thank you for the lightning round. Do you prefer a grounded Batman or one that has fantasy elements mixed in? Is mood important? To me, it was always odd that he shared the screen or panels with people like Superman and Wonder Woman.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I've always felt, and I think one of the way back when we started this, we talked about this a little bit, I think. But one of the things that I love about Batman is that he is so adaptable to any situation. I think it can get a little out of hand sometimes because I think the reason that he gets such so juiced up like mentally, or if you look at the Snyder movies, he's like Tony Stark level with all of his gadgets and his vehicles and stuff. I think that's because there's this certain need to make him come somewhere close to hanging with these god level characters that they always put him with. Yeah. But I've always liked the fact that he is human when dealing with these characters, because it is this nice counterpoint when you've got this trinity of characters where you've got the alien, the god, and the human. I think it's a nice triptych of characters. So I would say I think he's adaptable to most stories, but I probably skew more towards grounded. So I go like James Bond level grounded, where he's fairly grounded, but he's got some gadgets.
Yeah, that's where I go to. I mean, if you came at it starting with the animated series, Batman Beyond, he's fully and Michael Keaton. He's fully formed without the Justice League.
Right.
If you came to it with JLA and those cartoons, Batman's obviously a natural fit with that. So if you're older, it might be weirder. But if you go back far enough, he was always I don't know. I guess it depends on how you approach Batman, what feels comfortable.
Yeah.
Because I definitely agree with the person who's asking the questions. Why is this normie hanging out with gods and aliens?
Right,
they could just murder him. Like, oh no, Batman's 2 steps ahead. It's like, yeah, fuck that. Like, he can't be. He's gonna fall asleep at some point.
Actually, that's his secret. Is he's gacked up on meth.
Just 30 years of coffee.
Worked.
He never stops.
It worked. It worked for the Nazis, unfortunately.
I mean,
have you ever read that book? That book is really good. It's called Blitzed. It's about how the Nazis were basically high the entire time, which is how they ended up beating everybody. Yeah. It's crazy.
It's a great title.
Yeah. Let's see. Would you rather watch a bad episode of Batman the Animated Series or a good episode of Batman Beyond?
All right. So the worst episode of Batman Animated Series is The Terrible Trio.
Yes.
Where these 3 douchey college kids wear animal masks and commit some weird crime. Would you rather watch that or Epilogue? Or the opening two-parter of Batman Beyond?
That's so. Now that you've picked 2 specific episodes, that's an easier answer, because before I was going to say animated series just because I like the look of it more, but I would much rather watch Epilogue than The Terrible Trio.
Yeah. I mean, Terrible Trio is a more comfort show.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Comfort episode.
Fair, yeah.
It's a snowy cabin. Those masks are warm and toasty.
Also, Epilogue technically isn't a Batman Beyond episode. So if we're going straight up, I guess what? The pilot, the 2-episode pilot?
That's what I was saying. Yeah, that's the best one. Or when Batman sings.
I guess I'm probably I might still go animated series if that's the case.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's a tough one.
Yeah. All right. Everything in Batman Beyond is purple. Mm-hmm. Sky is purple. Buildings, roads, purple. Sea is purple. Most clothes, including Bruce Wayne's, purple. This person's asking, I don't know if they missed it, but what do you think about all the purpleosity?
Yeah, and what would your reaction be if a colorist returned your Batman art with everything purple?
Oh yeah.
Sorry. No, go ahead.
I generally like warm colors in my comics. Mm-hmm. I torture my colorists with limited palettes, and I'm telling them which orange to use. They joke around. This is Sean Murphy orange. Is a statement I've heard a lot, which is kind of funny. I think we have talked about the Batcave, and when Terry's in there, his red symbol turns purple, and there's it's definitely part of the look of the show. Yeah. It breaks it apart from the TAS, which is good, but I don't know if I like purple blues as much as I like warm colors. What about you?
Yeah, I would agree generally. I think one of my big issues with Batman Beyond has always been that the colors don't feel of a piece the way they did in the animated series. And that bothers me in comics too. I every now and then I'll get pages back and the colorist will just it's not any fault of their own, but they just use 15 colors. And it's we probably don't need teal green on this mostly red panel. And so
that's my problem with colors in comics is mostly I've said this before. It looks like a Skittles explosion.
Yeah, yes.
And I don't know what you're supposed to do when all these characters come together and have fights. There's just no way to have a unified color theory or a palette or a limited palette.
I find myself looking back at a lot of older comics, the way they were coloring things when they were doing it all by hand, and their options were much more limited. Actually, I got the artist edition of Batman Year One, and Mazzucchelli writes an introduction where he goes pretty in depth about the coloring process, and it was really interesting because it was stuff that I didn't really know. Talking about you only get these colors, and all this is how the registers work, and all that kind of stuff. And so it shows you how difficult it can be to color that stuff. But I always loved the older separation of things where it's stuff in the foreground a lot of times would be a solid purple color to break it up from the stuff they would color more warmly in the background. So I like that approach. in a lot of places where you use those sort of extreme colors to really kind of create your depth and stuff. However, I don't know why this is. Maybe we've talked about this before. When people come up to me and show me art at a show, art that they've colored, I can spot an amateur color job right away because the colors that they use are purple and yellow. And I don't know why. For whatever reason, the two contrasting colors they choose to it's always like in a gradient or something in the background, but it's always purple and yellow, and I don't know why that's those are the colors that like beginners or intermediate colorists go to. I'm not sure why that is.
I think I might know why.
Ooh, okay.
I think when you're taking coloring in art school, the idea of complementary colors is like a big moment.
Sure.
You're like, oh, contrasting colors. Like, it's so artistic to use contrasting colors, which basically means you're going to color something one of three ways. Red and green, which is Christmas, so most people don't go there. Blue and orange, which I think is better, but most people don't go to blue and orange. They go to yellow and purple because it's very poppy and cool and candy, and it's just like, when you've seen things colored traditionally forever, and you get a little artsy, you get a little color theory under your belt, you're like, ooh, what about minimalism, purple and yellow? I think that's why. And the kids that do that, who show up with those portfolios, are of a certain age, and I feel like the odds are that they're at that phase in their coloring growth, and they're probably ages 20 to 25.
Yeah.
And you can immediately see it when and they'll try to use yellow to color something that's clearly a dark object.
Yep.
Like, I inked this guy's jacket mostly black. Why would you think it was yellow? Why wouldn't you make it dark purple, idiot?
Yeah. And that's something too, is seeing how colorists handle things that are thrown in shadow or whatnot. Are they changing the color instead of just going a darker yellow? Are they going like orange or brown, or maybe even like a purple or something like to show you can handle that stuff differently than just, well, it's yellow, it should be darker now, so now it's like this mucky, ochre brown color.
Right.
Yeah, it's interesting. I seeing a lot of different people's work at shows is always very fun to see what things many people have in common, who, I mean, clearly don't know each other, but for whatever reason, going down this road, there's the same bumps that people seem to hit. It's fun.
Yeah. The contrast color theory is definitely one classroom's worth of material for most colleges. Yeah. So I think that's what we're seeing.
The one thing that I learned in college that has fucked me up to this day is I forget what class it was. It was one of my illustration classes, where the teacher was saying, if you're going to paint skin color, don't use the usual Caucasian skin color. Don't use peach or don't use whatever. You want to make sure that you use blue, cobalt blue, alizarin crimson, and then I can't remember what the other color was. And so I started doing that. And so if you look at stuff I've colored myself, most of the time their faces look like these ghastly white faces with red cheeks and blue lips, because I couldn't synthesize what he was trying to tell me into practicality. So that's something I haven't quite figured out yet. But
it sounds like Heath Ledger wearing the Joker mask before he takes it off.
Yes,
you know that scene.
Yeah. Like if anyone out there digs up the Condiment King cover that I did, I colored that myself, and if you look at his face, it's like pasty white with some blue and red kind of like mixed in there, because I still haven't figured it out. That's why I pay other people to do it. Yeah.
When I color stuff myself, I basically go red or orange. And I go, okay, now what? I'll start tweaking stuff.
Well, done for the
colorists. Day. Yeah. Like, they never get to use green or pink or purple. And, green is certainly if there's forest scene and all that. But especially with sci-fi stories, there's so many sci-fi stories and comics that try to be Blade Runner.
Yeah.
And there's so many colors of the rainbow in Blade Runner. I don't think it really works. I think in comics you could do better. So when I do my future cities, I try to go warm, like take some creative liberty. Even the leaves, if there are any, are orange or red. and try to limit it. Don't go full Blade Runner because it's just going to be a candy explosion.
Right.
Like, it works in Blade Runner the movie, but I don't like it in my comics. I like to limit things to more of a European aesthetic.
Yeah.
And I drive my colors crazy.
Let's see. Which do you prefer, Batman in the future like Batman Beyond, or Batman in the past like Gotham by Gaslight?
I think we both agree on this.
I'm going to say the past.
Yeah. Batman feels pulp.
Yeah.
Pulp is the past. However, if you said, do you want to draw a comic that takes place in the year 1900 or in the year 2100, I'd probably rather draw sci-fi. But for Batman,
fewer horses.
My brain goes, yeah. But Batman just feels better in the past.
Yeah. Biggest problem with Batman Beyond, he doesn't have a collar on his suit. Gotham by Gaslight, huge collar. So we're good to go.
Love it. Stole it. Yeah, knives in his belt. Yeah.
What is the best Batman story in each of the... That's going to be here all day doing that one. Sorry, Kyle. What's on your comics pull list? I don't have... I've never had a pull list. When I go to the comic store, I tend to just pick up what I think is interesting. Unless there's something specific I'm looking for, I'll usually go over to the new comics rack and just grab a few things that look interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I've never had a pull list. I remember one time I was in Massachusetts at the Drake comic shop called The Flea. And they're like, because Gambit miniseries was coming out, drawn by Lee Weeks and Klaus Janson.
Mm-hmm.
And I was a huge Gambit fan. So, like, you can just order this ahead of time. Like, when it shows up, we'll put it in a box for you. And then you come back and you pay for it. I'm like, that's amazing. So I said, sure, yeah, sign me up for that. So I went about my day. I was 12 years old or whatever. And I saw Gambit available at another shop. And I just bought it. Then when I went back to my Drake shop, they're like, here it is. I'm like, oh, I already have this.
Yep.
And I was young and dumb and didn't quite know how it was supposed to work.
Yeah. It also, they get dangerous because, like, you keep putting things on that list and that pile keeps getting bigger and bigger. Comics ain't cheap anymore.
If I'm a comic shop owner, though, because I like to argue from both sides, of course you want people to have pull lists and you want to know their taste so well.
As long as they pick them up. Because I know that's a big problem is people having pull lists they don't pick up.
And you can sometimes, what they want, you'll just throw it in there. Like, oh, I knew that you liked Clay or Sean, and there's a new Batman coming out. I got an extra copy for you. Don't worry about it. Like, you want to have that kind. It's like going to a bar and having a tab. It's cool to know that you don't have to pay them right away, and you kind of want to go to that bar even more, Yeah, assuming you pay.
It's cool to know you don't have to pay them right away until you eventually have to pay them.
Yeah, I've never had a tab at a bar either. I've never been ballsy enough to slap my hand down and say that.
No, I think I'd need to own the bar to pull that off.
Yeah.
Okay. Sorry to see the end of the podcast, although I very much enjoyed it. Thank you both. My question is, who are your top 5 Batman artists?
Let's make this more interesting.
Sure.
Best Batman cape.
Ooh.
Kelly Jones.
Yeah, Kelly Jones.
Yeah, cape. Kelly Jones draws the cape like no one else. It's ribbed. It whips around. It's like I tried to swipe it and I just can't. Yeah. My brain is not.
It defies structure. It has structure, but it also doesn't. Where it's a single piece of fabric, but also at the same time it's like 5 different layers of fabric. It's really it's a really impressive piece of drawing he does when he does Batman.
All right, how about best Batman artist that's like a solid classic meat and potatoes Batman?
That's tough. I want to say Neil Adams.
Yeah, he's up there.
But my heart always goes to Garcia Lopez because that's like the Batman image.
Yeah.
But
I just bought all of his Atari Force comics from the 80s, and it's so good.
Yeah.
I bought it thinking they'd be Atari characters. It's not. Spoilers. But go ahead.
I was just my caveat to that is I think his Batman is an evolution of Neil Adams' Batman. And when Neil Adams is on, it's tough to get better than him if you're just looking for a classic comic book artist.
Right. Best manly Batman.
Ooh.
I'd say Jim Lee is a contender.
Yep.
Jorge Zafino. But I guess he did more on Punisher, which is pretty manly. If anything, he draws as manly.
Zafino's Batman, I was on my general list. I was going to put him on there, even though he didn't do very much Batman. I think he only did that one story, right?
Yeah, and a few covers. Yeah,
and his covers are pretty intense, but his actual Batman black and white story, it's a very subdued Batman, which I really like because he obviously blends him into the background really well. And he also does something that they don't do in the movies, and it really makes me mad. They did it in the Michael Keaton movie a little bit, but I feel like they stopped doing it after that. They don't hang the cape over his chest, so it covers his whole arm. They always have to peel it back over his shoulders so you can see the symbol. And I just think it looks so much cooler when he's just more of a shape than anything else.
You're right. I always, to criticize myself, I always forget to do that. Not only is it a time saver, but it's just effective. And when I get down to start drawing him, I'm like, well, if I'm going to sell this page, I want to see his belt and his abs and put the work in and blah, 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 blah. Like I forget to be more like Tim Sale or Toth about it, Yeah.
Yeah. I think Tim Sale does a pretty good manly Batman. His Batman's pretty big. He's got huge muscles.
Yeah. Yeah, Tim's best stuff was Long Halloween, and the other one he did. Like depending on his mood and how tired he was, and he had some ups and downs in his life. Like there's some not so great Tim Sale Batman, which isn't controversial because I have some not so great Batman. But yeah, when Tim hit it, he hit it really hard, which was great.
Yeah. Do you prefer muscly Batman, or do you prefer something closer to like the Mazzucchelli or John Paul Leon Batman, which is a little bit more meat and potatoes?
Yeah. I always go jacked.
Yeah.
my style is very macho manly, and I just go jacked.
Yeah.
What about you?
I think I tend to skew the other way. I like the Batman who's more amorphous and more in shadow and stuff. Not that I don't love traditional muscly Batman, because I do. It's a strange contradiction of but there's no reason you can't love both.
What's
go ahead.
One more. Oh, best Batmobile artist.
Ooh, that's tough. Maybe this is controversial. Maybe it's not. Excluding you, I can't really think of many iconic comics Batmobiles.
Right,
like they just, I don't know. The only one that I can think of that comes to mind is like, oh, that's an iconic comics Batmobile, is the one with the big bat face on the front of it from like the 30s.
Yeah. Who's the guy that did Killing Joke?
Brian Bolland.
Bolland. I mean, Bolland's so good at everything. Yeah. Machines, especially, like giant typewriters and cars. He's so good that it can be stiff sometimes, but that's sort of the point of what he does. It's amazing. But yeah, I don't really have a bat other than myself. I don't know of anyone who's like leaned into it so much to like plant the flag and be like, I'm the Batmobile guy.
Yeah, when I think of the Batmobile in comics, I think of most of the 90s comics that I was reading, and I feel like the Batmobile got really kind of wonky in the 90s because they were trying to make it more like a 90s sports car. Robin had his own weird like Ferrari, the Redbird or whatever it was called. Yeah, and they were all just kind of like not that interesting.
Yeah. Honestly, as a car guy, it's really hard for me to watch people draw Batmobiles and not understand cars at all.
Yeah.
Like audibly angry, like what the fuck? Why would you expose the rear tires like this? It's hard to just see people fuck around with and screw up the greatest car ever.
Yeah. I will
like there's more bad Batmobile drawings. Like I'm gonna go 90-10.
Yeah,
90% of Batmobile drawings I've seen in professional comics do not pass my test.
I would agree with you, and I not to blow more smoke up your ass, but I think that when all is said and done, I think you will be one of the few people who did Batman where they not only think of Batman, but they specifically think of the car as well in comics. Because I can't think of another artist who I'm like, oh yeah, no, I loved Neil Adams' Batman and the Batmobile, I guess.
I mean, yeah. So I actually pitched DC. I'm going to be doing this comic in the next year or two. Batmobile White Knight. It's just a comic called Batmobile, and I'm not really sure what it's going to be.
Wait,
you'll be involved.
Are you serious? This is actually happening?
100%.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I pitched three. I pitched volume 4, volume 5 with Superman Batman. It's going to be called Batman
World's Finest?
No,
oh, okay.
Batman White Knight of Tomorrow.
Oh, okay. I
yeah,
get that.
because we wanted to keep Batman in the title, like Son of Tomorrow, but White Knight of Tomorrow, basically, because Superman. So that'll be at least 8 issues. Then I'm gonna do a 48-pager Catwoman of all splash pages.
Nice.
And it's gonna be like the 9 lives of Bruce and Selina. And it's gonna talk about the 9 times they broke each other's heart and they died a little bit each time, whatever. So it's gonna be very flashbacky, a lot of cameos. I'll get other women he dated in there, like Talia al Ghul and Zatanna and stuff like that. So it should be fun. I want to sort of follow in the footsteps of that famous Thor issue that Walt Simonson did.
Oh, cool.
So probably like a voiceover narration. Relatively easy to write, guessing, but we'll see. And then the fourth thing I pitched was Batmobile White Knight, and it's going to be about Bruce. It's going to be sort of like Batman Year One White Knight, where he's learning about being Batman by learning about how to improve the Batmobile.
That's cool. Is it going to be like a one-shot?
I'm thinking 4 issues.
Oh, okay, cool.
I think I'm going to start with Bruce's You ever see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang?
Yeah. I don't know if I've ever seen it, but I'm aware of it. Yeah.
The opening shots
is
like, written by Ian Fleming, which is wild. The opening is a bunch of car racing in 1910. So, nothing holding the crowd from running across the racetrack. You're leaning on a tank of gas instead of a seat. I mean, it was wild how dangerous and explodey it was. So I'm thinking maybe Bruce's grandfather used to enjoy racing in 1910 or 1920. So really old stuff. So Bruce's love of cars actually comes from his grandfather.
Nice.
In a way, and find a way to work Alfred in, because Alfred's sort of a chauffeur, and back in the day you had to employ someone to maintain the car and drive you around. It wasn't just you were rich and snobby. Like, you literally needed to have an employee deal with it, which is interesting. So yeah, I'm not really sure what I'm going to do, but that's kind of where I want to go, or start at least.
Nice. And you said all 4 of these things they greenlit?
Yeah, all 3 of these things.
Okay.
So yeah, Batman White Knight of Tomorrow, Catwoman will be coming. I think that'll come out in between those issues, like a gap book, so to speak. And then Batmobile White Knight, which I'm not sure what I'll call it, but yeah.
Sounds cool.
And yep, that'll take me through the next 3 years.
Breaking news on the pod. Well, I guess we'll see how many people listen to this last episode to see if this news actually makes the internet. But
it's like I say this a lot, but what I say here doesn't usually leak out much. Like, there's no transcripts, luckily.
You gotta wait
really,
for
other than
2 hours of hentai jokes to get to the actual.
I mean, the airplane boner definitely pops up a lot.
It sure does. Okay, we're gonna do the last question, which is sort of an in-house question. You wanted to talk about whether or not the modern era of movie star is protected from movie flops in a way that they didn't used to be. So, for instance, you can be in Madam Web, and it doesn't really affect your career, as opposed to, years ago, one stinker could be the end.
Right. Yeah, you could get labeled as toxic, Hollywood toxic, or like, oh man, we backed Ewan McGregor for these 3 movies and he keeps missing. Maybe he's not as hot as we think he is. Like, he used to pay a penalty to be in a bad movie. Now, the mega film, like Star Wars, Marvel movies or whatever, there's so many bad ones. It doesn't seem like it really hurts anyone's career. Yeah. It always felt to me like that is mainly because the draw is more the IP than it is the person at this point. Right. Which, I feel like everybody says, but it's kind of true. Yeah. Like, it doesn't matter who's in Transformers movie, Right. I mean, there's also 20 superstars. It's not like, Iron Man. Who plays Iron Man?
Robert Downey Jr.
Yeah, it's not like Downey Jr. is going to get blamed for all of it not going well. He's clearly doing his job. There's also this weird thing that's happening now is people seem to be more aware of behind the scenes stuff.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So it might just be the podcast, YouTube dunk fests with Indiana Jones and anything against Kathleen Kennedy. But like when we saw superhero movies as kids, we didn't know who the director was, who produced it, or what the intention of the studio was. Now people are aware of that stuff and love to criticize Rian Johnson or whoever it may be. Like there's more of shooting to go. There's more people to aim at, basically. Yeah. And it's not any actor's fault. It's just a lot more complicated now.
Yeah, and it's like it's kind of wild that something like Daredevil didn't end Ben Affleck's career or like really harm it.
Yeah.
But I mean, especially in that era, he was not having a great run. But he managed to turn it around. But like, yeah, if that was 1989 or whatever, that probably would have put him in a movie jail for a long time.
Good phrase, movie jail. Didn't Jack Nicholson have some advice for a different Joker? Or he said, or maybe he was even him thinking out loud to himself. He thought, if I do a good job with Joker, I'll never have to work again. Or like he knew it was a big risk.
Oh, sure, yeah.
But big reward.
Yeah, huge reward. Like he still gets paid. Like I think he gets paid for anything that has to do with Batman '89. He gets a cut of it.
Yeah. Or any Joker on screen, it might be really.
It might be even that. Yeah.
I could spend a whole hour talking about that, so we can just leave it there for now. Save it for a special.
Sure,
we do one of these again.
I mean, it'd be interesting to look at a couple movies in question and use that as an excuse or something, but I don't know.
So one question I want to throw out there is: give me your predictions for where the Batman IP is going. You can talk about the books, you talk about movies, games.
Movies, I think it's going to get kind of weird. Because I don't know. It sounds like what they're doing. You want to talk about Batman oversaturation. If they've got the Matt Reeves stuff going at the same time as the James Gunn stuff going, that might be too much Batman. Although the Matt Reeves thing isn't coming out till like 2027 now, so that's ways off.
Yeah. I also didn't know that movie wasn't necessarily a huge financial hit. I thought it was, but lately I've been hearing that it sort of underperformed.
Yeah.
Still made money.
I'm curious to know what the actual budget was, because that was a COVID movie, so I'm sure there's a lot of extra budget, tacked onto that. And I mean, same thing happened with Batman Begins. Batman Begins wasn't a huge hit, and then it wasn't until Dark Knight that they really blew it open,
And I don't think they thought the Penguin show would do so well.
No, definitely not. I don't think anybody did.
Certainly gives them a head-scratching moment. I mean, so I guess just the movie stuff. I mean, we're right on the brink of Superman coming back under James Gunn in the Justice League in 8 months or so. It's hard to know. I mean, if it's a big hit, will it extend the superhero genre, or if it flops, will it help retire, at least for now, the superhero shit and let Hollywood focus on video game movies like Mario?
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm really curious, more so than Batman. I think Batman's in pretty good hands. Clearly based on the last movie and the Penguin show, Matt Reeves and the people he surrounds him with know what they're doing.
Yeah.
And I generally think James Gunn is really good at what he does, and I'm excited for that Superman movie, but I don't know. It looks like it's got some pretty deep cuts. Like, I don't know if the general public is going to be psyched to see Guy Gardner, but
yeah.
But I thought the same thing about Guardians of the Galaxy. I thought that was going to be the first big miss by Marvel, and clearly it wasn't. So,
yeah, Gunn is good at a certain type of humor, certain type of swagger, getting at a few sweet hits from the 1970s, multiple character movies. Like, he really is at his element when it comes to Peacemaker.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. His secret is he's got a lot more heart in his stuff than I think people give him credit for.
Yeah. Yeah. And for me, Guardians 1 is top 5 superhero movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's way up there for me.
Yeah, it's really good. Go ahead.
But I also think Batman exists outside of superhero movies too.
I think so too.
Like, just because superhero movies crash doesn't mean Batman will. It sort of has this,
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I know Hollywood. I feel I've been saying this for a while, but I think Hollywood is dying to get past superheroes, to get into video game movies, and they just won't let up. And I know disaster of Mario in the 90s to sort of a hit Mortal Kombat to Pokemon, to Detective Pokemon and Sonic. Like, I feel like they're starting to figure out the formula. I know, and I agree with you when you say it's video games are appealing because you're playing the character, and that's inherently you have a problem when you make a movie of a video game. Like, how do you inject plot to change people's mindsets? And yeah, it's tricky, but they seem to have gotten better and better at it now. And I feel like once Mario did so well, I mean, so many properties got bought up immediately. Like the option for Rubik's Cube,
yes,
or 8-Ball. Like anything that was a toy after Barbie, especially like Bratz got re-optioned, and they're just grabbing anything that's a toy or nostalgia or whatever, or a video game based, just because they're ready to move past superheroes.
I'm always going to be here for superhero movies because I'm a shill in that sense. But man, am I looking forward to moving past the nostalgia stuff, because I feel like it's just bottom of the barrel at this point. Like, we gotta come up with something new, guys.
Yeah, on that too, and I don't want to say much because I don't know if I'd ever be working with James Gunn or whoever. But if Superman fails, I'm fine with it, because I'm tired of the discourse in my industry being a hen pecking contest over which is better, and people nerding out and getting angry and energized and fighting on YouTube about wokeness or about how they're ruining characters. And like, I'm just tired of the culture war bullshit. So if the movie industry moves out of comics, then I feel like it'll be just a lot. Tensions in comics can subdue a little bit.
Yeah.
Maybe that's naive. And if Superman's a hit, well, it's probably better money-wise for all of us. And, comic convention culture will still be huge. And, that's certainly important to many artists' bottom lines, is getting people to go to comic cons where they can do sketches and whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, like, either way, I'm happy. If it's good or if it's bad, I'm like, yay.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't know if a bad Superman movie is going to make anybody who makes a living off of that stuff any calmer.
Right.
But yeah, I know what you're saying. In comics, future of Batman in comics, I don't know. I was joking the other day about how everybody has a super family now, and it's like, why isn't Gotham the safest place to live? Because there's like 25 different members of the Bat family. He's got like 8 Robins. Why is there any crime in Gotham City?
Yeah.
And I know everybody has their fans have their favorites and all this kind of stuff, but I wish they would simplify it or something a little bit. I guess that's what they're trying to do with the absolute stuff. I do find it interesting that DC, it feels like every few years they try to update their core characters, and it never seems to take hold, and it always goes back to the classic stuff. And not that I have an issue with that, but I just find it fascinating. Like New 52, it's like, okay, we're gonna update all everything, new costumes, new backstories, yada yada yada. Okay, he's gonna get the red pants back. Don't worry, guys. Like that kind of thing. And even the absolute stuff, that's its own universe, I guess. So it doesn't really affect it. But it's the same idea where it's like, how long until this just sort of goes back to the status quo? I guess that's the beauty and the negative side of comics. That's
just kind of something even in other industries. Like, think about Oreo cookies or Doritos.
I do all the time.
The backbone of Doritos is classic, Cool Ranch, and I don't know, Flamin' Hot. And every now and then there's like taco flavor or lime or churros. Who doesn't want a churro? they'll try these little things. People get excited. They come in, they buy a bag or two, but eventually they get phased out. Oreos, you got peanut butter Oreos sometimes, mint sometimes. You know, the double stuff isn't going anywhere, but like I think brands are expected to throw a curveball every now and then just to keep the brand relevant, totally, and then you fall back to base after that. You know.
Yeah.
And I think that's what DC, to some extent, Marvel do as well.
Yeah. Do you like that? Do you like that they do that?
Yeah, it's important to take big risks and try something new.
Yeah. And
if it sells, it's good. Like Batman Absolute is selling really well right now. I'm happy. I'm happy for Scott. As a friend, I'm glad that he's number one. I don't want him to ever have to be number 2 or number 3 because his head would explode. It's just easier for everybody if he's just killing it. So it remains to be seen if the numbers are real or if it's based on variant schemes they're doing. Like by issue 4, we'll know if it's certainly a hit and doing well and everyone's happy. And the morale in the office is very good.
That's good.
Because even if I'm not saying this is the case with Scott's book, even if a book isn't a hit, if it feels like a hit and everyone's buzzing, then that's good for morale.
Yeah, no, that's great.
But the future of comics, it's obviously bigger than Batman, but it seems like comics are, both of the large companies are just gatekeepers of IP. It doesn't really matter. Let's talk about Marvel and Disney because I don't work there. It doesn't matter to Disney that Marvel is successful. Marvel just has to kind of keep the same things happening just so they can make movies and games. I've said this before. The pie chart on Spider-Man is $1 billion a year. Then half of that is just based on a video game, or a movie, or underwear. You know, this pie chart slices up more and more. And the smallest slice of the pie chart of Spider-Man is Spider-Man comics. So we can fight all day over what's a hit, what's not. And in the end, you know, the value of Spider-Man to Disney is like a wart on its ass as far as comic book sales. Like they just don't care. There's millions of dollars at stake on Spider-Man games. Why would they give a shit about some comic book?
Right.
It matters to you and me and people listening, but to them, I mean, you know, again, these aren't my opinions. This is just the rules. This is the number and the data. So, you know, as far as how well comics will exist in the future, it feels like even if they're not making money at all, Disney would still be paying to keep that company afloat just to keep the IPs relevant. Right. You know? So in a way, it doesn't matter if the sales go down because some of us will still have jobs because Spider-Man needs to be in a comic, period. Yeah. Doesn't matter if it's selling or not.
Yeah.
That breaks my heart to say that, because I think comics is great and it should exist on its own and be successful in its own right. But being practical right now, you know, obviously these are the things that we need to think about moving forward.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting next few years, obviously, see what happens with the movies, and hopefully that doesn't, if things start going poorly, hopefully that doesn't impact what we do. I don't think the failure of Madam Web and Kraven the Hunter is going to hurt Spider-Man sales, so hopefully.
No, yeah. I mean, the thing is, does a hit even help the sales?
That's true.
And the answer generally is no.
Yeah.
Like, if Superman flops or whatever happens with Marvel, it never really helped us anyway.
Right.
Except, like, comic book fan culture in San Diego Comic-Con is huge.
Yeah.
And people know they can go to these places and dress up and take their kids and spend money. That has been a direct effect to our ability to make money, because a lot of creators don't make money in comics. They have to go to shows, basically be caricature artists in order to get by.
Yeah, I mean, you make $1,000 at a show selling Wolverine and Deadpool prints. That doesn't happen unless that movie comes out, unfortunately. But
yeah, exactly. Yeah. Corinne, who should be listening. Oh. No, my friend Corinne, she sits with me a lot, and I had to basically arm wrestle her and force her to draw 2 prints to be a little bit more commercial friendly. One was a Harley Quinn print, and one was a Deadpool Wolverine print. And she fought me, but she agreed to do it. She drew it, and those 2 prints both sold out in New York. So congratulations, but also fuck you, Corinne.
What a great way to end 8 years of our show. Congratulations and fuck you.
All right, what can be our final words here? Besides that,
well, for me, I'm very happy that we did this. Hopefully you are too. I think we've got a lot of great conversations out of it over the years. And to quote Captain James T. Kirk, it's been fun.
Is that what he said? It's been
right
fun?
Before he died.
That's all he said?
Actually, no. He said it a little bit before he died.
He said, oh my.
Yeah, his final words are,
died.
oh my, yeah.
Okay.
It's been fun was earlier. I can't remember at what point, but.
You can be right about A pillars. I'll be right about Kirk.
He did say it. I just don't remember when. Anyway.
Well, I mean, hopefully we'll come back for a special or two when something's on our mind and it's Batman related and we're both free. Yeah. We can keep recording these, but it'll be intermittent.
And who knows? Once the new White Knight stuff pops up, maybe we'll want to get back on and talk about it, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. It's always good to have a reason to talk about that stuff and what's new and what's coming out.
That's fair. I'm there. That sounds good to me.
Well, thank you all for listening. Sean, thank you very much for doing this with me the past handful of years.
Thank you, Mr. McCormack. It's been an honor and a pleasure, sir.
Ditto. All right, thanks, guys. We'll see you next time.